Last year, I set out on a massive road trip to visit the north, east, south, and westernmost points of the contiguous US. It didn't go so well.
My friend Nathaniel had embarked on this journey with me to visit the aforementioned extreme points. We only made it to the northernmost point before disaster struck and my car broke down in Flint, Michigan. Now, this was an insane plan, of course, even more so this year. However, I was determined, so I set out once again to finish what I had started. A journey spanning 34 states, 40 days, and over 10,000 miles. This is the Big Loop 2. We start out as all great journeys do, just outside Miles City, Montana.
Do you remember last year when we set out on a road trip that we had talked about since middle school? And then it almost... Oh yeah. I'm alone.
That's right, I'll be alone for most of this trip. Just me, the car, the road, and the existential dread lingering in the back of my mind. Can't worry about that, though, it's time to drive.
But yeah, we're back. Well, I'm back. As you can see, new year, new car, newer car. It's still like 10 years old. Pros to the new car, it's much younger. It has less miles on it. It's more comfortable, I'd say, to drive. You know, the handling's definitely better. You know, it's all covered really in the newer car part. There are some cons though. For one, the AC just doesn't blast the same. Secondly, I don't know, this car just isn't as nostalgic for me. Like, I probably spent more time in it than the Legacy, but like, I don't know, there's just something about that car. It's like the first car I had ever been in, or at least like remembered being in, so, you know, it's much less impressive to do a massive cross-country road trip in a 2012 Outback, you know?
Now this year, I'd be taking a new route, as I already visited the northernmost point last year and I didn't see a reason to return. So it's time for a new path going a bit more south before reconnecting with the original loop route. Although there are a handful of interesting Badlands features, there's honestly not too much to say as I drive through eastern Montana, so let's fast forward a little bit. Pause for cows. After a few hours of driving, it's time for the first state crossing.
Let's go, state number 2 of the trip.
I mean, it is North Dakota, so not the most exciting crossing, but there are still some Badlands, so I'll enjoy them before I reach the Flat. Also a random dinosaur sculpture. But the real excitement is that from here on out, almost everything I see will be brand new to me. Almost all new roads, new counties, and a good chunk of the states I'll be passing through I've never been to before. My first real stop was just outside Bowman to see a cowboy riding a missile. Pretend the hat is still there. I love random junk sculptures, and I hope you do too, since that's a lot of what there is to see out here.
We're going on this rickety-ass bridge. Oh, fuck. This is a bad idea.
The excitement continues. I then pass by the town of Scranton. It's crazy to think that this is where they filmed The Office. I would say that joke's probably been done to death, but that would require people knowing about the existence of Scranton, North Dakota. While many people might not find driving through small towns to be the most interesting, I kind of enjoy it because you never know what you might see. Like dinosaurs. Sure, I'll pull over for random dinosaurs in a park, why not? Also this mural, which has a very inspirational quote. "You have one shot, make it count." Kind of ironic to read on the second attempt of a trip gone wrong. Continuing on to the second state crossing of the trip.
State number 3, let's go. It is so hazy out right now. This is not okay.
Shortly after, I arrived at the town of Lemon, which had these streetlights that bathed the town in an eerie purple glow. I have not seen any other town with this color of light, but there's also a scrap metal dinosaur statue with what else but a cowboy riding it. However, the real draw of this town is the Petrified Forest Park, which might be one of the strangest places I visited overall on the trip. I do wish I got to see it in the daytime, but the atmosphere added by the twilight lighting is impeccable. This place felt cursed. I saw this gate that looked like, oh, if you step through it, you'll be transported to another dimension. I'm not superstitious, but I saw this abandoned bike here and decided that if the supernatural is real, this is not where I'm gonna find out about it. Oh yeah, there's also a jail cell type structure. I don't know what that's about. It being pretty late at night, plus the strange vibes of this place, made it feel like I was going on a Prairie Madness speedrun. What would usually take a few days is now happening in a matter of hours. At one point I saw a sign that said, "Road work ahead, please consider alternate route," and of course my brain goes, It's road work, it can't be that bad.
Road work ahead? Yeah, I sure hope it does.
Oh, it doesn't! The road is just gone. The quality also got worse after that clip. Like, it wasn't like, oh, it's a dirt road. No, it's like dirt with some cones around it. They just tore up the road entirely. So after a stretch that was more stressful than some backcountry mountain roads, I'd finally made it to my camp in Mobridge and was already in Central Time Zone. I started out day 2 being able to actually see my campsite in Mobridge, and it exists. There was one thing I wanted to see in Mobridge before starting to drive, this fish statue. Just a completely normal statue of a walleye. Yeah, there's a cowboy riding it. What do you expect?
Day 2, big day today. We're gonna have our first meeting. That feels too formal of a word of the trip. Gonna be meeting Pim at the world's largest ball of twine asterisk in Minnesota. But first,
I got a chip on the windshield. I wasn't setting that up in the clip, but a truck passed me on a gravelly section of road with like a cartoon cloud of like rocks and dust surrounding it. Honestly, a miracle I only got one chip because it sounded like I was driving through a hailstorm. What I was actually talking about before was my next stop, Eureka, South Dakota. I just had to see the wheat capital of the world. Nah, the actual reason might be even worse. It's because the county it's located, McPherson County, is the least visited county in the contiguous US. Or at least it was when I went there. Now it's Logan County, North Dakota, maybe. I'm getting this information from mobrule.com, a website for county collectors, and if it's the least visited among people who go out of their way to visit different counties and keep track of them, then yeah, there's probably a decent chance it's the least visited. But just how is the county? I mean, it's like most other counties in South Dakota, there's a lot of prairie and farmland. Yep. I probably added at least an extra hour of driving just to do this. I also stopped in Leola, which is the county seat and the rhubarb capital of the world. Neither of these claims are backed by anything. But, I mean, who's gonna call them out? Are you gonna do it? When driving through the mountains, I like to take a ton of videos because each turn has the potential for a new exciting view. But driving through South Dakota, it's pretty much just this for hours. Sometimes a town or a city. Maybe you'll see something interesting there. I hope y'all are enjoying this knockoff dash cam, which is just my phone in a stand. Anyways, let's fast forward to the next time something happens.
there we go. State number 4. Let's go.
Of course, the first thing to do in Minnesota is stop at a lake.
This is Big Stone Lake on the border of South Dakota and Minnesota.
So, Ortonville, which is back there, is right on the border with South Dakota. So I figure, you know what, I'm gonna walk over the border just to say I've done that. Just for the novelty of it. You can tell where the border is because of the change in road quality. Well, I'm pretty sure the border is back where the road changes quality, but this is like the first actual thing that indicates you're in South Dakota, so I'll go to here.
Ortonville has kind of a neat vibe, though, for a small town. I also saw what I could only assume was the big stone from which Big Stone Lake gets its name. That's actually because it's a big lake with a lot of stones. The landscape here is pretty similar to South Dakota, but with a few more towns, so let's skip forward about 2 hours. As I mentioned earlier, the main stop of the day was at the world's largest ball of twine, made by one man, in Darwin, Minnesota. That qualifier is there because there's another ball of twine in Kansas that was smaller, but then more people added to it, so Minnesota had to add the qualifier. Because that's right, this was made by one guy.
Oh, I can follow them on Facebook.
I also met up with Timothy Ann here because what else could we do in southwestern Minnesota? Not shown here is the extreme hunch position I had to be in at this height. This was a grimace of pain. There's also an attached museum which, like many small towns, is just an old house filled with stuff, but as long as you print information about it, it counts as a museum. This here is what America is all about, making obscenely large objects out of obsession, often for war. Francis A. Johnson, the mind behind the twine, also carved a lot of pliers, including these 7-foot-long ones. And people say autism is a new thing. Some of my other favorite objects in the museum include the misspelled Puyallup, Washington, Dusty Darwin, Australia fridge magnet, squirrel, fish trophy, butter trophy, and corn husking trophy. I mean, that's a tough win. They must have had to beat Nebraska, and that's like their whole thing. Do you think they even still do this? I mean, I could Google it, but I think it's more fun to speculate. I haven't even mentioned the Weird Al song yet. There's so much to say about the biggest ball of twine. That song is almost 7 minutes long, and Weird Al got a shrine and a street named after him for it. And I'd say it's deserved. Then, after a Midwestern-esque conversation where we said goodbye at least 3 times in a parking lot, but then continued to talk about the weather and roads construction, I headed on over to Minneapolis. After 2 long days of driving, I was gonna call it an early day. Oh look, there's trees now.
It's day 3. We have the breakfast of champions, a lunch meat and cheese sandwich because they stopped serving breakfast at 9 and I woke up at 9:06.
This day, I'd be checking out Minneapolis, starting out with that big ol' spoon. It was under construction. I mean, you can still see it, but it does take away a little bit to have the perimeter of fences around it. It's not the only piece in this sculpture garden, though. You've heard of blue balls, but what about a blue cock? Screensaver, a horse that I only paid attention to because the artist is from Montana, and many more that I couldn't come up with a bit for. Nearby is the Walker Gallery, which is an art museum, which I would summarize by saying it features lots of art that fascists would say isn't art. I hope you understand the vibe when I say that. Now, I'm not going to show a lot of it because, for one, I've realized me filming art museums might violate copyright law being in a YouTube video, but maybe as long as I, talk about it, it's fine, I don't know. He says while still showing some art. But also, a lot of this stuff is kind of intense and would probably get flagged. I would like to recreate a piece I saw, so imagine a dark room with a kind of crinkly floor and eerie noises playing on a speaker, and then you turn a corner and see this on a screen. I would recommend this museum because while it did have some kind of disturbing artworks, it did make me feel, and that's more than I can say about, some art museums. So I've been trying to summarize all my thoughts on the art into 2 minutes, but I'm realizing that's really hard to do. Does that sound like a cop-out? Kinda. You try summarizing your thoughts on an art museum into 2 minutes. I'm spending too much time on this. I had other things I wanted to see in the cities. Fun fact, Minneapolis tests out their tornado sirens on the first Wednesday of every month. Didn't know that, but saw nobody else reacting, so I figured, it's probably fine. Next, I decided to check out the Como Park Zoo in St. Paul for one main reason. It's free. I couldn't wait to see my favorite animal. Nothing. The first exhibit was actually empty. As for what they actually have, great apes luring me to get closer. Presumably to kill me, wear my clothes as a disguise, and subsequently escape. Fair enough. Also in the primate house were these little guys, and holy shit, she's eating her child. Dragon. There's also the big cat area, and big cats are just cats but big. Most of them are just napping in the corner. The porcupines were also here for some reason, and I got to see them eat. Who wouldn't dream of watching a quilly beast consume peppers? There are also these machines scattered around the zoo that would mold a plastic figure on the spot, and they smelled horrible. The giraffes and ostriches were in the same enclosure. When you really think about it, ostriches are the giraffes of birds. Fish, tortoise, sea lion caves in Oregon. Nearby, also in Como Park, there's a conservatory and Japanese garden. Why was the fig tree pruned? To encourage new growth because it only blooms and develops new fruit on new annual growth. This type of pruning is called pollarding. I'm not sure I get the joke, but I'm no botanist, horticulturalist, plant doctor. His garden's pretty neat. Afterwards, I decided to check out downtown Minneapolis, so I needed to figure out a place to park. Well, I guess I did have a spot paid for all day, so I went back to the art museum lot. Then I walked all the way across downtown with the goal of seeing the Stone Arch Bridge. Along the way, I just kind of observed Minneapolis, saw the old courthouse and some other buildings. Minneapolis just feels like a city. There's nothing too crazy going on there, seemed nice enough. Growing up in a relatively smaller town, cities with lots of tall buildings always seemed so exciting, but then I learned it's mostly just office buildings and a lot of space is probably abandoned. When I got to the Stone Arch Bridge, it was closed. I could still look at it. Kinda wanted to go across it, but okay. I'm gonna be real, I don't know why I added a full day to spend in the Twin Cities when there are so many cities that didn't get a full day, but I'm kinda glad I did. For one, driving in it felt like a warm-up because sure, it's a large metro, but it also doesn't have the most insane traffic. Having now driven in so many cities, I can say that it's pretty manageable. Also, I've been to the Twin Cities a handful of times, but never really visited Minneapolis, so it was nice to check it out. Time to keep moving eastward. So Minneapolis and St. Paul are known as the Twin Cities, but Minneapolis is noticeably larger. Why doesn't Minneapolis, the larger city, simply eat the smaller St. Paul? Okay, I know they have pretty similar populations, especially being located in the same metro. I just find it amusing since Minneapolis has a much more noticeably built up downtown.
At some point on this bridge, we've crossed into Wisconsin. That's what it's all about. Yep, there it is. I guess now we're in Wisconsin. We've immediately hit a traffic jam.
Driving through Wisconsin isn't too different, although there is the increased presence of cheese. Basically, every 10 miles there was yet another place offering their cheeses, but I had a different designated dairy destination down the day. There's some hills and trees, so it's definitely better to drive through than the prairie, but I feel like I need to find something to do this day. I need some kind of obscure attraction. I figured I would find what I was looking for in the Dells.
For those unaware, the Wisconsin Dells are a tourist trap the likes of which I've never seen before. It truly feels as though it is an inverse to a Greek island of myth. Within the vast sea of corn lies this isle of aquatic amusement, drawn in families from near and far, but not too far. This atmosphere is accented by the Olympus Resort, which takes up miles of terra firma in this city. I had sailed just offshore of this place before, but I wanted to go deeper and see what the rest had in store. I was honestly stunned at how never-ending the Dells felt, and I know I didn't even scratch the surface.
I can't lie though, the water parks look sick, and for some reason I don't have any video of those from this year. That's like the whole deal of the Dells. But I figured I could find something near the Dells that was a little less Dellsy, and boy did I. The International Crane Foundation, a zoo which is the only place in the world where you can see all 15 species of crane. Now let's go through all the types. Sandhill, Saurus, Blue, Black-crowned, Gray-crowned, Demoiselle, Wattled, Eurasian, Hooded, Red-crowned, Brolga, Black-necked, White-naped, Whooping, and Siberian. Now, you might have noticed I didn't see the Gray-crowned crane. They were resting out of view, but I've seen them in zoos before, so I'm not torn up. I've seen all 15 species of crane at this point. Also, they all have crane after their common name, except for Brolga. They're just Brolga. The individual cranes also have names, and I thought I'd share a few. The male black-necked crane was named Krusty. The female demoiselle crane is named Padme, after a Star Wars character, so the male crane must of course be named Anakin, right? Nope. I could give you 100 guesses and you would not be able to guess what Star Wars name they used. In fact, you would probably have a better chance if you just started guessing random names. Before I share, pause, comment your guesses, I want to see them. Quote, he is named after Jedi Knight Jurat Shemel Elio's personal starship Oberon. Crazy level of nerddom that he isn't named Oberon after the folklore character, but a Glup Shitto's ship. Additionally, this zoo has only cranes. I gotta respect them for sticking to the gimmicks. So many niche zoos I've seen other types of animals at. One last fun fact, Siberian cranes have the longest migration of all cranes at over 3,000 miles, which is like driving from Boston to Los Angeles. Could you imagine? I might be able to, yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, I can't because I did something even worse and longer. Drive through Wisconsin, get caught in rush hour in Milwaukee. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with this every day. I know it can get worse too. Like, if I lived in a big city, I would have to be somewhere with good public transit because I could not sit in traffic every day just to save a little time. Eventually, I reached my aforementioned cheese place, the Mars Cheese Castle. I had no idea what to expect on the inside. Would it be a factory? Would it be a store just absolutely brimming with cheese, or more of a tacky restaurant? It's just kind of a normal store with an emphasis on cheese products and a bit of medieval decor. And this fucking thing.
Do you guys have a shirt that says, I lost my cheese ginity in Kenosha, Wisconsin?
Aisle 7.
This is the best day of my life.
They didn't have that shirt, and I checked. Honestly, this place didn't really live up to my expectations. Although I had no idea what I was in for, I just kind of thought it'd be wackier.
I'm just not sure I see the hype in the cheese castle, you know? That's a danger to me and my others.
Then, the last event of the day.
Well, the sign was behind that truck, but state number 6. Illinois.
Finally went over to my hotel, and tomorrow would check out Chicago. Now, when it comes to finding hotels, it's a balance between price, location, and not wanting bed bugs. Most hotels downtown were too expensive for me. Stuff on the outskirts was a bit cheaper, but would take a while to get downtown. So the middle ground I found was staying at a hotel near Midway Airport. Was this insane? Kind of, but it worked. It meant that day I wouldn't have to drive a car whatsoever because I did not want to drive in downtown Chicago. As I set off on the train heading into Chicago, the reality of the trip I had embarked on started to set in. I'd be alone, almost always, in completely new places for the next 5 weeks of my life. Oh no, why did I do this?
I hope you're enjoying the Big Loop 2 so far. This is probably the project I've spent the most time on in my life, so I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video. That would mean a lot to me, so thank you. My Chicago plans had somewhat expectedly changed last minute, so it meant I'd be experiencing Chicago by myself. It didn't actually change my plans that much since I was just gonna wing it anyway. However, at this point I was starting to feel as though I had bitten off more than I could chew, as the reality of the trip started to set in, that I'd be doing almost everything by myself in unfamiliar locations for the next month and then some. Now you might think, why not try and meet some new people along the way? However, I am perhaps the most socially anxious person to ever make a travel video. Also, layer on the usual existential angst I feel and the fact that there's thick wildfire haze in early June and you've got a deep dish of dread. That's rough, but I'm keeping it in. To start this day, I decided to head on over to the Shed Aquarium because I like looking at fish. Also that shed with 2 Ds, not an aquarium in some guy's shed. Enough worrying about the future or whatever, let's look at some fish.
Go gambling!
You know what that means? Fish, 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 fish.
Larry.
This central room had a pretty crazy layout. I don't know where to start with the Shed Aquarium. It's got fish, turtles, spiders, whatever kind of fish this is. Do you know how weird a fish has to be for me to not have heard of it? Unsurprisingly, I was that kid who just read animal books on the bus, and I think I've retained a decent chunk of it. Also pretty exciting, depending on who you are, they have the 3rd category of amphibian, the Sicilian. It looks like a giant worm, it lives underground, and it's an amphibian. That's pretty cool to see since I've never seen one of those in person before. In fact, the tropics exhibit as a whole might have been my favorite since there's so many strange and giant fish in it. It's pretty standard for zoos and aquariums and the like to have a local exhibit. However, the Great Lakes, in my opinion, doesn't contain a lot of the most interesting fish in the world. Although, it does have something I know a lot of you have been waiting for. I saw a bunch of comments on the last part, really begging for the invasive lamprey pile, and here it is. However, this section actually contains the best fish of all. I love sturgeon. This aquarium also has a sturgeon touch tank, which is a thing I've seen at the past 3 aquariums I've been to. I had never seen one before a few years ago, and now they're everywhere? Where was that when I was a kid? There's also a separate ray touch tank, and they had names like Splash, because one of them would splash people. There was a coral reef exhibit talking about coral, go figure, which are a crazy creature when you really think about them. All coral is made up of a bunch of little polyps that all cling together to make the structures we know and have varying opinions on. If I was a coral, it'd take 360 years for me to grow, by the way. This is also the area with the shark tank. I tried pitching them to invest in the Big Loop 2, but they weren't biting. After that, I decided to walk in a direction. I had no plan. I thought about going up Sears Tower, but it was pretty hazy out and figured that'd be kind of a waste. So I walked along the lake. Just keep going north. Chicago's nickname is, of course, the Windy City, and yep. I said in the last part that a lot of large American cities seemed more exciting than they were, but Chicago feels like how I imagined a city would feel as a kid growing up in a smallish town. Like there's actually people around doing things. Saw this fountain, can't remember the name. I'm sure it's probably important, maybe. I was having such a good time in Chicago, can't you tell? I also saw the famous Chicago Eye sculpture that everyone has definitely heard of. Mood aside, I do think Chicago is a cool city, at least what I saw of it, and would love to return at some point. I kept walking and eventually ended up at Navy Pier and thought, hey, I've heard of that place. I guess I'll check it out. Not my best move, especially since there really isn't anything to do by yourself there. Nothing makes me feel more alone than large crowds of people. Also, just didn't feel like my vibe in general, but I walked to the end and back since I didn't know what else to do. I walked along the river. Fun fact, the Chicago River actually flows backwards. What does that mean? Well, it actually used to flow into Lake Michigan, and then they said, hold on, what if it flowed out? And then they did that. I had one more obligatory Chicago landmark I wanted to check off. The Bean. Its official name is Cloud Gate, but that feels like calling someone who goes by a nickname their full legal name. I do think it's really funny that one of Chicago's most iconic landmarks is a big silver bean. I mean, it's neat, but it is a bean. And also, I think the guy who created it fucking hates that people call it the Bean. Millennium Park, which is where the Bean is located, was hosting the Chicago Blues Festival, so I decided to sit down for a minute in the grass. The song that was being played was talking about leaving your troubles at the door. Unfortunately, parks don't have doors. Then I saw this fountain and thought, maybe this is it for me today. My plan of walking for the sake of walking had worked. By the end of the day, my leg hurt too much to feel lonely, which is vaguely the plot of House, probably. I don't want that to be the last sentence of the day, so what I learned about Chicago is that there's a lot more Bible study courses being offered than I would have thought.
Alright, well, it's day 6. What I learned yesterday is, I just gotta take things one day at a time. We're back. Just gotta keep moving forward. We're going to Indiana and Ohio today. Just gotta keep moving forward.
Now as I leave Chicago, I get to experience the beautiful scenery of strip malls.
Once we see the fireworks store, that's when I know I'm in Indiana. State number 7.
I was in Indiana. Can you believe it? Indiana. I almost immediately saw a giant plume of smoke. Now, believe it or not, I was about to visit my first national park of the trip, Indiana Dunes. Upgraded from a national seashore, it does certainly exist. There's actually quite a few access points to the park, but I started out with West Beach, where I got started seeing some wetlands, and as I pulled up to the parking lot, the dunes. I started out with a little climb up the stairs to overlook the dunes, and it was a nice break after spending a lot of time in cities the past couple of days. But when I got to the beach, maybe it's because it was gray and cloudy, but it felt kind of lacking.
If you look in the distance that way, you can see a beautiful oil refinery. But if we turn around, you can see another refinery. What a beautiful national park.
It's places like this that really make it clear we fucked up this land. There's a dissonance created by seeing these massive structures in the distance. Like, the whole shore used to be like this, Now it's a national park with the most fucked up looking boundaries. I'm pretty sure you can see downtown Chicago on a clear day, but alas. I also found a ladybug. Then I went to another part of the park called Mount Baldy, and I thought I was about to see a massive sand dune, which, to be fair, I did. Also, a giant cooling tower. When it comes to ranking national parks, it feels silly to categorize nature based on subjective characteristics. All that prelude to say this is my least favorite of the ones I've been to. I know it's an important place to conserve the shore, but I think it should have stayed a national seashore. Now let me just see how long it's going to take to get to my hotel. Oh my god, $25 in tolls? I know I'm doing a massive road trip and I would hopefully have $25 to spare, but damn. Guess I'll take the scenic route. Now I could begin the thrilling portion of driving through Indiana. I shouldn't have slandered the dunes too much when the rest of my day would be spent mostly looking at this pumpkin. I hope you all enjoy the scenery of the flat. I mean, this is exactly what I expected driving through Indiana, and maybe it caused my mental state to start to deteriorate a bit. I don't know, is it normal to pretend as though you're talking to someone else even when nobody's there?
I realize I'm not a big fan of the state highway signs. They're just kind of like white squares, Like, it looks a little too much like a speed limit sign. We have the first 2 seasons of Bob's Burgers are really good. As we cross into Eastern time, I thought Ohio was the Eastern time border. That billboard just says hit by a truck. No, it's Indiana. I just noticed that. I've been here for it does also make it sound like it just those. I think I got sand in my area, which doesn't even make sense.
Oh, like you know any lyrics beyond the chorus. This was routine though. Farm town, until...
It's Ohio time. First new state of the trip for me. Haven't been to Ohio yet. It's the first state that didn't happen last year, so it's weird to say that I've made more progress than last year because I'm in Ohio. I wouldn't say I'm excited to be in Ohio, but you know, it's like, hey, it's a new state. There was immediately road construction as soon as I crossed the border, except, you know, nothing's actually happening, it's just cones. So.
Ohio is a state that exists. I'm saying that a lot today. If it was a Pokemon, it would be normal type. I wish I had more to say on it, but yeah, Ohio is just truly kind of there. Why everyone picks on Ohio over Indiana, I have no idea. They feel very similar to me.
Since I decided to take the southern toll-free route, I decided to take a little detour to see something. Now, I know last year when I did that, I ended up going to a town called Climax, but it's not like I have anyone to bring to Climax this year, so, you know, what would even be the point? Oh, I drove myself to Climax? That's not special, you know?
So what was I gonna see? Well, I'm gonna drag it out a bit more.
It's a cool church, in whatever town we're in.
My stop was in Gilboa, where I would see the big beef cow. What a truly magnificent bovine. I'm sure at least one person is wondering why I went out of my way to see a giant cow statue, and to you, dear viewer named Marcus, I say, you just wouldn't get it.
There it is.
Okay, more Ohio, yippee!
Down in Ohio, swag like Ohio. Down in Ohio, swag like Ohio.
Here's a mundane fact. I think Bucyrus was the first repeat name of any place I passed through since there was one in North Dakota. The only songs I could think of relating to Ohio were Swag Like Ohio and Ohio by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Okay, we're here. Day 7 started out with pouring rain, which was a nice break from the non-stop sun. I started out by visiting the second national park of the trip, Cuyahoga Valley. For the pronunciation, I saw it could be pronounced Cuyahoga or Cuyahoga, or I'm completely mispronouncing it. Whatever case, please make sure to be super mad about it in the comments. I'd really appreciate that. Usually I like to start out national parks with the visitor center. What a nice fun fact in the visitor center, but it took the 13th fire to realize you need to clean the river up? There's a joke here, but I don't want to sound too down bad. Pretty good visitor center, also a cool little town around it that was probably just like employee housing and restored buildings. Then I went to hike on some trails, through the meadows, into the forest, and saw some ledges. Get a little bit of view of the whole park, probably not even the whole park. It's kind of an oblong park. Also, to my recollection, this is the first time I ever saw a cardinal with my own 2 eyes, not just through a screen. I feel like some people are going to be flabbergasted by that, but cardinals just don't live out west. I kind of thought this park would be mostly just some forest, which would have been nice, not too much of a standout though. However, I would say these rock formations make it feel like a worthy stop. I am a big fan of rocks. I feel like if my life took a different path, I would be a geologist. Maybe I still could be. There's more life to live. I often worry about coming off as insincere when I'm trying to be genuine, but this was like a genuinely cool area that exceeded my expectations. For the first time in a bit, my mood was starting to improve, and all it took was getting back to nature, as well as an ominous rusted door blocking off a cave entrance. There's also this chicken wandering around? Why are they here? Alright, now I'm saying words to use any last remaining video clips I thought were cool before driving up the valley. There's a few ski areas around here. I don't need to say anything. I spotted a snapping turtle on the side of the road while driving past and stopped to get a closer look. If you're from a snapping turtle area, I'm sure this isn't that interesting, but it's another animal I had never seen in the wild before, and I thought it was cool. Keep driving up the road to a different visitor center, the Canal Exploration Center. Yep, there's a canal. Consider it explored. Now, I like collecting the national park maps. I've noticed more often that parks aren't putting them out, but you gotta ask for them. Unfortunately, I'm bad at transitioning my thoughts from my brain to my mouth, and forget every adjective I could have used to describe this map. And do you have the map that looks like this? The park employee knew what I was talking about though, so hell yeah, another map for the collection. Then one last stop in the park, Bridal Veil Falls. I feel like there's gotta be a Bridal Veil Falls in every state. It's like the Springfield of waterfall names.
I honestly enjoyed Cuyahoga a lot more than I thought I would, considering it's like the Ohio National Park. Honestly, like maybe a top 15 national park of the ones I've been to. What do you mean, how many have I been to? I don't see how that's relevant. I think like 16.
Now, I was definitely pleasantly surprised by Cuyahoga Valley, but then immediately after leaving, it's like, oh yeah, I'm in Cleveland. I got nothing left to say about Ohio, so...
Alright, let's go. State number 9 of the trip. New state number 2 for me, Pennsylvania. We won't be stopping, but we'll be back. Don't you worry, pencil heads. Maybe we'll stop in the rest area. I don't know.
I stopped at the rest area. I'm just in this little nub, so I'm gonna keep going.
Alright, let's go. State number 10.
In every state, I try to spend at least some time not on the interstate. I mean, I'll be spending a lot of time not on the interstate later, but whatever. I just wanted to find a place to stop on Lake Erie so I can say I've seen all the Great Lakes. Here's the ranking. This basically translates to how much time I spent at each. Now it's time for one of my biggest regrets of the trip. I thought it would be a fun bit to see Niagara Falls for a second. Here's the thing, you can't just make a quick stop at Niagara Falls. It might be the biggest tourist trap I've been to. The city of Niagara Falls feels like a maze. Also, there are so many people here. It's amazing I got a couple of shots with like nobody in them. The falls are really cool though, but the namesake cities on either side, less so. Moral of the story, don't blast through the falls. If you're gonna go see them, you might as well set aside some time for them. I thought it'd be fun to include in the video, but I might have been the most stressful thing I had done in the trip up to that point.
I have committed numerous traffic violations in the city of Niagara Falls, New York.
Also funny that just down the road was this nice little park where there was nobody. Now it's time for a montage of driving on the interstate as the sun sets. This might have been the latest I was driving in a day because I was not expecting to stay in Cuyahoga Valley until 2. Who'd have thunk that I would have willingly extended the time I spent in Ohio?
Day 8, which means, you know, starting the second week of the trip, which, you know, that's crazy that it's already here, but I don't know, and I'm already wondering, like, why am I doing this? I'm really starting to slow down. I'm losing energy. Feel selfish for going through with this, and I don't know, I just felt like this strong urge that, like, I had to do it this year because I think it's going to get worse. I guess I'll go explore the Adirondacks. Let's go.
I was clearly feeling pretty low at this point, and this is where the conflicting feelings of I am so privileged to be able to do this and why have I been saving years to do this? Why am I doing this at all? Really started to clash. I was starting in Watertown and heading through the Adirondacks that day. Now, thankfully a bit later the clouds started to part and I think it improved my mood somewhat. Also, I swear the bug splatters concentrate right where the camera was pointed. The rest of the windshield was usually fine, but there'll just be like one intrusive one just like right in view.
I don't know if it's good or bad that I can stop a panic attack from happening by driving. Driving's like, hey, I gotta drive. I gotta focus on this task, and if I don't, then I'll die. So, you know, like, you can wait. I assume this would be considered rural New York, but it just feels so, like, not rural to me. Like, look how many buildings there are. There's so many driveways. I kind of miss the middle of nowhere. Like, for some people, the middle of nowhere gives them extreme anxiety. But for me, it's the opposite. Where, like, especially when driving through a city is like, I hate it so much. I hope there's some roads today that are just like, yeah, there's none around.
I've seen people say that the East Coast is just as empty between big cities as the West, and it's like, no. The West is on a whole different level of emptiness. Like, the only place that really comes close in the East is maybe North Maine. I mentioned it before, but I do kind of like passing through small towns and seeing if I spot anything interesting. I also just kind of appreciate the different architecture. It's a nice break from the major highways because it's a bit soul-crushing when every interstate off-ramp feels pretty much the same. Of course, it's common knowledge that chain restaurants and big box stores are all across the country, but driving for thousands of miles and seeing the same establishments, you just kind of go like, damn. As I continued to drive, it got more rural, but I'm still seeing signs and mailboxes. I want more rural. More. I think I need to get out of the car.
Back to having a little bit of a crisis, just had a moment where I'm like, oh, I'm in the middle of the Adirondacks, driving. I drove all the way here. I'm thousands of miles from home. I'm alone. And that's my life. Nice scenery, though.
Then for the first time in a week, I could see some proper mountains in the distance. I stopped at Tupper Lake, and I wasn't sure if I should expect these chairs to be everywhere, but they were. These chairs are known as Adirondacks, and they are some of the dumbest chairs in the world. I'm sure I'm parroting something I've heard before, but who wants to sit with their knees above their hips, low to the ground, but also the armrests are high up and it's all made of wood? I feel like I should have recorded myself sitting in one, but it proves my point that I didn't, because who would want to? Look at these goslings to cleanse. I feel like I was entering the most touristy part of the Adirondacks here with the type of buildings I was seeing. Passed by another lake, and then the most famous town of the Adirondacks, Lake Placid, which hosted the Winter Olympics twice. I didn't really want to stop there. It felt like a kind of a tourist trap, but more like an upscale one, if that makes sense. But still meant to trap, you know? The Adirondacks were the first region that I feel like I missed out on because I was just so burnt out when I passed through them. They looked really cool, and I'm sure I would have enjoyed them more had I gone off on some side roads and may hike some trails, but as will continue to be demonstrated, I am bad at planning. At this point, my destination for the night was 20 miles as the crow flies, but Lake Champlain is quite oblong with limited options across. Now, I might not have stopped in Lake Placid, but I did stop in Plattsburgh. They've got an obelisk. This day was another day where it hit me like a train what I was doing. Unlike the Chicago day though, where I was just in one city, this was a day where I had to keep moving down the road. I was really questioning my life decisions. But I persevered. The whole day was kind of a blur, and I don't feel like I appreciated it as much as I could have. This place is also one of the few, and maybe only, places to include French on official road signs in the US. Since I was so close to Quebec, and there are quite a few French speakers in that part of the US as well.
Cross this bridge, I think at the apex here, right? Yeah. We're in Vermont. Let's go. State number 11 of the trip. Another new state for me. Never been to Vermont before. New York. Probably my least favorite state to drive in so far. Just the layout of things. I'm sure that's not going to stop, though.
I saw a Confederate flag like 5 minutes into Vermont. Vermont is the Green Mountain State, but you would not be able to tell it from this part. Here I was doing a little island hopping and bridge filming. Calling it island hopping is weird since I was driving. Whatever, you get the idea. I got to Burlington pretty late because I'm bad at planning. It was the first and only place I got honked at on this trip, which is kind of surprising. Unrelated, semi-related, I hated driving through Burlington. The streets were so narrow, but at least I was driving a Subaru, so I blended in minus the plate. I was staying at a campsite on the edge of town and took a little stroll before it got too dark out, where I learned my campsite was next to a cemetery. Which doesn't bother me because the only ghosts are within our minds. When I woke up on day 9, I saw a spider larger than any I've seen in Montana inside my tent. Alright, time to get out of here. Fun fact about Burlington is that it's the least populous, most populated city in the state. Now I can claim this video as educational. I was still feeling pretty rough since I was now getting tired of the constant rain and overcast, and the loneliness was really hitting me at this point, and I was thinking about things that are probably a little too personal for this video. At least the scenery was nice though, really enjoying the Green Mountain State and actually seeing the Green Mountains. I wanted to visit some Capitol buildings on this trip, but hadn't so far. However, I'd be passing through Montpelier, which is the least populated state capital. So there's another fun fact for free. The Vermont Capitol building is pretty neat, got a nice gold dome. I didn't go in, I got places to be. Saw another cow statue though. Moo.
Alright, day 9, what's the vibe? I don't like driving in New England. I know I've only been to Vermont so far, but I have a feeling that's going to continue for the rest. I mean, like, you know, the rural driving is actually fine. You know, it's very nice scenery. Quite lovely out here. The cities, though, are very cramped. These cities were built before cars existed, but now we're going to force cars into them. It's like, cool.
The whole thing does make me wish the US had reliable public transit all over so I could do the whole trip that way, but alas. I know I'm not driving on an interstate at this point in the video, but one more final fun fact about Vermont is that they labeled their exits weird. So almost every exit in the US's number is based on the closest mile marker, but Vermont has them sequentially, so exit 10 could be on mile 50, for example. I do prefer the regular mile marker way, since if you know your exit, you have an approximate idea of how far away it's going to be, but the main thing is, Vermont, get with the program. What are we doing here?
As we cross this river, we're going into New Hampshire. Yep. Live free or die. Oh, look at that. There's nothing. There's nothing going on here.
Yeah, the scenery seems similar, so I'll skip to the main event of the day. Mount Washington, the highest peak in the Northeast, also holds the title of greatest prominence east of the Mississippi River, and you can't see it right now because of the clouds. Don't worry, there's a road up so you'll get a better view. At the start of the road, there's a gate where you pay and they give you this bumper sticker, and I'm thinking, I've been on far worse roads than whatever will be up here. That isn't some clever setup for the road being super difficult or something going wrong. I genuinely have been on several random Forest Service roads where it felt like because I was able to drive away, my car had survived. Like, this road is paved, come on. Me getting into an imaginary pissing contest about road quality aside, this was a neat drive. You start on this forest section, but as you climb higher, you can see the environment start to change.
Oh, yes, dude.
Once you're able to see beyond the trees is when the drive starts to get really good. After driving across the plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes, this felt like a real treat. Sure, the Adirondacks in Vermont had some twists and turns, but this had some real elevation. I was being a bit too harsh earlier because this road definitely isn't the easiest to drive on. You do need to be paying a lot of attention, but at the same time it felt pretty smooth to drive on, and I don't have to worry about mud or giant rocks in the middle of the road that could just destroy the underside of my car. I kind of love the feeling when the road just plummets off the side. I think that's the most of an adrenaline junkie I'll ever be, though. Then I'll admit it gets a little sketchy in the fog. That was probably the most nerve-wracking part of this drive because if someone doesn't want to drive on their side of the road, Thankfully it didn't happen. I made it to the summit parking lot with no issues and encountered Mount Washington's greatest claim to fame. Mount Washington is one of the windiest places on Earth and has the highest non-tornado/cyclone wind speed ever recorded at 231 miles per hour. That was in the winter, but to my understanding, the wind never winds down. The summit is just a quick walk up from the parking lot, and it's pretty cool to be there, but at the same time, it's cold and windy, and you can't see anything. It's all just gray, so let's go inside. Inside there's a museum mostly talking about the weather station. You can see the equipment used to measure the record-breaking speed in 1934. There's some other stuff talking about the environment. Also, there's a railroad up, but that's an adventure for another time. I'd love to come back in the fall. As I already said, not too much to see at the summit, so let's head back down, and if you thought the drive up was cool, the drive down is even better. The angle at which you view the landscape is much better, and the valley looks like a river of clouds. This was one of the coolest moments of the trip, hands down.
Alright, New England city's pain to drive through, but this might redeem it. This might be my favorite part of the trip so far. I like it because it reminds me of...
Now, drive down felt a lot steeper than to drive up, and you really notice since your car will just start going down, which I think is really fun. Driving down a winding mountain road, letting gravity do most of the work, might be one of my top 10 favorite things to do. And I'll say it again, the scenery is amazing. It's a different vibe than what I'm used to since the tree line is much higher up on the mountains and I'm used to Rocky Mountains. Words don't do it justice. You can see, but also the phone camera doesn't do it justice. Also, there were several reminders to pause and take a break for the brakes since they could start to overheat, and I think I smelled them at some point. I hope I didn't, and I was just making things up, but you definitely wanted to use brakes. As much as I wanted to just let it ride, that would have ended badly. But I'm not going to complain about spending more time here. At one point, I could see the summit and was tempted to drive back up to see if I could get an unobstructed view from up there, but I knew the mist would return as soon as I got near the top, so I didn't even bother. Pretty much every time I stopped, I got more pictures, and here's some more words to fill the script because Mount Washington was super cool and I want to include a lot of it in this video, and wow, it's so cool! Feel free to fill out the survey while Mount Washington footage plays in the background. Question 1. What place that's been featured so far in the Big Loop 2 would you most want to visit? Question 2. What vehicle would you most want to take a big road trip in if money wasn't an issue and it didn't need repairs? Question 3. Could you endure driving 8 hours every day with barely any social contact? Question 4. Do you think you've peaked in life and are on a downward slope, much like the one seen in the video? Question 5. What's your favorite fish? Thanks for filling out the survey. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. Now onwards to Maine. I took a wrong turn. Now onwards to Maine.
Surprise, it's Maine. It's Maine. Oh no. Impromptu filming because I did not realize the Maine border was already here.
I blasted through Maine since I spent a lot of time at Mount Washington. Here's the thing, Maine is mostly forest, so this was just kind of what the whole drive looked like. I guess there was construction in Augusta, so that had a slightly different color palette than gray and green. There was a twinge of orange. Some sections I take a bunch of footage and think, I'll come up with something to say later, and then there really isn't anything to say. Oh, all the North New England states had different moose signs, so that was a fun thing to spot. I didn't spot any moose, though. The fog is coming, 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 the fog is coming. This was pretty much the last couple hours of my drive. The fog started to become orange due to the sunset, at least I can only assume. After crossing basically all of Maine from west to east, I arrived at Lubec, the easternmost town in the 50 states, and where I would be staying for the night. I could really see why there are so many horror stories set in Maine.
Long room.
So I settled into my strangely long room, ready to finally reach my first extreme point of the trip, which you'll see next time on The Big Loop 2. I started out day 10 in the town of Lubec, the easternmost town in the 50 states. Lobster in the roof. I had a real breakfast for the first time on the trip before setting off to the easternmost point of the contiguous US. Thankfully, the fog from the night before had cleared up, so now was a bright and sunny day. I had thought about trying to see the easternmost point at sunrise, but figured it wouldn't be worth it to get up that early, and also it'd be foggy, so what would the point even be? And it turns out the park was closed until 9 a.m., which, like, okay, why?
Alright, the mood is good right now. I'm on my way to the easternmost point of the contiguous US. It's also the easternmost point of the 50 states. Like, people say, oh, well, actually, the easternmost point of the US is in Alaska. I mean, yeah, by longitude. That's measuring from Britain, dude. I don't live in Britain, I live in the US. Relative to the rest of the US, this is the easternmost point in the 50 states. Oh, shit, I'm already here.
That lighthouse up ahead is the spot I've been heading towards for the past 9 days.
Well, I did it. Look, there's the stone, the lighthouse. The first major point of the trip completed. I think technically the easternmost point of the US is back there. Hold on, yeah, I think it's that rock, but not very accessible, so yeah. Easternmost point of the US, it's all west from here pretty much.
Some guy was nice enough to take my picture in front of the stone marker, so shout out to that guy, I didn't even ask. This was a huge morale boost. I had finally made it to one of the extreme points on the trip and had knocked out my second extreme point overall. It felt like I had really achieved a goal here. Even though there was still a ways to go, my spirits were lifted and the nature here was beautiful. It was a nice temperature out, a nice breeze, things were looking up. I think it's kind of funny how the easternmost point of the contiguous US is called West Quoddy Head, because East Quoddy Head is in Canada. Another tidbit, my phone registered as Atlantic time here, so I was very confused for a brief second why the 10-minute drive took over an hour.
I'm on the beach right now. We're gonna see if I can find a little critter of some kind. That's the goal.
I found a spider.
Too organ brain for this.
The beaches I'm used to in Oregon have all sorts of creatures, but I just wasn't finding anything in the rocks until I came across this.
Oh, what the fuck is this? What is that?
I genuinely had no idea what this thing was at the time. Upon further research, I believe it's known as a sandworm. I was hoping to find like a crab or a starfish maybe, but nope. Worm from my nightmares. Well, it was about time to head south and west towards the next extreme point in Florida.
Alright, first of the extreme points of this trip visited, second of the extreme points overall. Gotta say, liked it better than Angle Inlet. One, wasn't a complete pain in the ass to get to. I didn't have to go through customs twice and on a long gravel road and all that, and just drove out here. Secondly, nicer view, and not as many mosquitoes, so yeah, a little bit nicer than Angle Inlet. Also closer to the actual easternmost point, where Angle Inlet's like so far away. even reachable, you know? Like, why'd they put the buoy there? We've got another exciting day ahead. We're gonna be driving near the coast in Maine. The sun's out, day 10. I don't know if I said that earlier. Let's go to Bar Harbor.
So I continued along the path through rural Maine, and this is pretty much the vibe. Hills, trees, and sometimes a view. One of the towns I passed through was called Cherryfield. I'm sure you can guess which crop they claim to be the capital of. Blueberries. Maine is famous for them, apparently. I also want to say congrats, McKenna. I have no idea who you are or what you did, but everyone make sure to congratulate McKenna in the comments. The other place I really wanted to stop at today was Acadia National Park, which you can see in the distance here. Bees, construction, more forest, and we're here.
I love saying Bar Harbor with like a terrible Boston accent. Like it was made for it, like 3 R syllables in a row, like Bar Harbor. Yeah, Mom, me and the boys are going to Bar Harbor for the weekend. We're gonna beat the shit out of a whale. Or whatever Boston accent sounds like. I don't know why I'm going into Bar Harbor though, since I know it's a tourist trap. I know I'm gonna hate driving through it. I'm not going to Bar Harbor. I saw the main tourist part. We're just gonna go back. You can't make me go to Bar Harbor. Yes, there are some nice things about being alone. I can do my terrible Boston accent as much as I want. I guarantee you, no one else would tolerate it for this long. I'm gonna cut so much of this. All roads lead to Bar Harbor out here, apparently. I was like, oh, I'll take this random turnoff road. And it's like, no, it's going to Bar Harbor, I think. I don't know. I didn't see any, like, hiking trail signs, so I'm just gonna assume that goes to Bar Harbor. I'm just putting in another clip of me saying Bar Harbor a lot.
After driving through another heaping hunka-chunk of forest, I started to see why Acadia stands out. I love hills, I love terrain, yippee! Maine is mostly forest, so it's rare you get to see the topography of the area, and growing up in the mountains, I do enjoy seeing the earth rising up in the distance. I made a stop at this garden featuring plants from all the habitats of Maine, including my favorite habitat, the roadside. There was a sign here which means someone must have thrown rocks at frogs, and I had a whole thing here but it didn't quite flow with the rest of the video, and basically it boils down to if you do that, you're a piece of shit. Now, even though I was already in a part of a park, there was a fee area, there was a toll gate up ahead, which was odd, but past here was made one of the busiest areas I've seen in a national park. There were parked cars for probably miles. I'm sorry to the residents of Maine for being one of the tourists here and just completely flooding this area. But I could see why this area was so popular. The rocky coastline really lended itself to a few postcard shots. Like, look at that and tell me it wouldn't be on a postcard. I mean, you know, if it was with a better camera, but you know.
Tasty, tasty rust.
I didn't want to linger too long as there was more to see, like this lake which I forgot the name of, and was not worth the time I spent trying to get a parking spot for, honestly. Perhaps the best feature of the park, though, is Cadillac Mountain, a mountain which provides far-reaching views of the surrounding landscape, and yeah. I assume that if you watch this far, you at least tolerate my jokes, but I got nothing here, it's just beautiful. It's pretty rare to get an easily accessible mountain so close to the coast. After a rough couple of days, my outlook on the trip was staying pretty positive. There are fewer national parks in the eastern United States, but what they lack in quantity, they don't make up for in quality, as my 3 least favorite national parks I've been to are in the eastern half of the US. Acadia is really cool though, and it's the only one I've been to in the east that I prefer to some west of the Mispis. It is certainly my favorite of the trip so far, but that's like a hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby type of matchup. Getting moving down the road after the park was a whole ordeal. Welcome back to another traffic jam where, yeah, I am 100% the problem, since there's no way this traffic isn't at least 75% tourists. There are a couple other places I wanted to check out, but I spent a lot more time at Acadia than I expected. Common theme so far. Then there was this crazy bridge I saw. I was tempted to stop at the nearby Outlook, but I was losing time, and it was a day where I'd have to worry about fighting off tiredness with how late in the day it was, and I still had a lot of driving to do. I did have time for this rest area with these plastic bears that looked like they had the souls of people trapped within, and moose.
The vibe at the end of the day is not as fun. I simultaneously feel like I'm doing too much and not enough at the same time. It's not a great feeling. That's just how anxiety feels though in general sometimes, I think. Well, check out Portland, Maine through the windshield smears. Alright, also one more thing. The fact that Maine still has like cash for its toll roads. Like the other states I've passed through, like Illinois, New York, have like had electronic ones. Also, the old guy at the toll booth was blasting $1 Million Baby, which I think is very funny. A little bit later occurred to me I might not know how the Easy Pass works. Like, for all I know, it's like, oh yeah, you just have to go to easypass.com. But I don't know how it works, so I've been paying in cash. Maybe I don't need to.
I was having another reality setting in moment.
I drove to Maine. I drove to Maine by myself. I drove all the way to Maine, dude. That's insane. This car has never been east of the Mississippi until, like, you know, what, I think about a week. Was it a week? Has it been a week? Now I'm going down. Now I'm going to Florida. Oh, shit. I think that's the bridge to New Hampshire up ahead. Well, alright, yeah. There it is. I was about to say new state, but, you know, New Hampshire, first returning state of the trip. You know, completely new spot. We're close to the coast. We're not seeing anything, though, so I might have passed into Massachusetts and not realized it. Because that's exit 90. So, oh, nope, there it is. Okay, that's weird. Massachusetts welcomes me. Literally 15 minutes after entering New Hampshire, I have left. New England is so small.
I might make a cut for time video, and a lot of it would be from this part. Yeah, nighttime drive through Boston area. I was definitely feeling the tiredness. Good night.
Day 11 of the big loop. We're into the second quarter. This is the angle you get. Am I naked under here? You'll never know. I'm just gonna go into Boston today. I actually have no idea what I'm gonna do. I don't know what there is to do in Boston, I realized this morning. Some park and ride. I just think it's funny because like every other plate, because like every single plate in here is New England. Oh, there's a Pennsylvania. That's the furthest plate away I've seen. But then, like, imagine, I really hope someone just walks past and is like, is that Montana? What the fuck?
Now at this point in the trip, I was perhaps a little bit exhausted and had a bit of a less eventful day in Boston. There were still some things I saw, like the Massachusetts State House. It looks pretty nice. The red brick decor definitely does differentiate it from other Capitol buildings. There's statues. Most of the day I spent wandering around the Boston Common and did a bit of people watching. I usually go to a statue like this freaky ass arms one and find a bench nearby and sit for a minute, then rinse and repeat. One of the statues is dedicated to the invention of ether, so that's interesting. Jeez, that's terrible, but if it makes it into the video, it means I couldn't think of anything better. Oh. Apparently there was something called the Frog Pond around here. I was wondering how I could have missed something like that. Oh, that's how. Also, I almost ate shit because I tripped on a hole. Can you see it? I didn't spend the whole day in the park, though. I moseyed on over to the harbor to see what's up. On the way, I saw the best Boston landmark of all, Boston City Hall. Ever since I was a wee lad, it's been my dream to see Boston City Hall. This is what their old City Hall looks like, by the way, so clearly they upgraded. Okay, it's so funny how there's so much red brick architecture and then like a lot of modern stuff in downtown Boston, and it's just concrete. Continued to the harbor, passed by a Boston market. Not the chain, just like a market in Boston. Should probably call it by its actual name of Faneuil Hall or Faneuil Hall. I saw two different pronunciations to avoid confusion. And nearby I saw this thing. Boston? What is this? I know there's a plaque where I can read about it, but my question stands. What? I'd say most people in Boston look like they would belong in any American city, and then every so often, someone dressed up like Paul Revere would walk by. They don't tell you that about Boston. I know they do tours and are probably just off-duty, but it's still amusing to see. There are also some people that I can only describe as a cartoonish depiction of a Bostonian. They had a thick accent, wearing a backwards Red Sox cap, matching jersey, or sometimes you'd be Celtics merch, and basketball shorts, holding a coffee from Dunkin'. To describe one person I saw, imagine Fred Durst, but Boston themed. Wouldn't that be someone you want to hire for your next birthday party? Okay, there's the harbor. I don't know why I felt compelled to come and see this. I don't like being in cities alone, and this didn't help. Okay, bye. Again, Boston seemed like a cool city to wander around, maybe even a top 5 city for wandering, since it seems like there was something pretty cool on every block downtown, but I'm fighting self-imposed demons over here, so... I wish I kept track of this earlier, because I feel like every single place I've stayed at has had a different shower. Just in my life, honestly. Like, what is this? I haven't seen any kind of shower that looks like this.
Alright, day 12, big day today, driving to New York City. I'm nervous. I don't want to drive in New York City. I guess I don't technically have to, but you know.
First, I had to get out of Mass, though.
Entering Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Well, state number 15, Rhode Island. So the thing is, I do want to get out of the car in every state, but I have literally no idea where to do that in Rhode Island, because like I don't want to drive through New England towns anymore.
So what did I do?
I'm in Rhode Island. I stopped just so I could say I've set foot in Rhode Island. It fucking sucks here. Maybe there's a better thing. If I see it, I'll stop there, but...
There wasn't a better stop, like a rest area or something. I mean, I guess I could have pulled over in an urban area, but I don't like driving in urban areas in New England. So fight me, I guess.
Are we in Connecticut yet? There it is, the sign's up ahead. Welcome to Connecticut, home of the submarine capital of the world. I was about to say, I don't feel like that's the first thing I associate with Connecticut, but then I was like, what is the first thing I associate with Connecticut? And then I realized, I don't know.
Alright, I've had some time to think about it. Lyme disease. Well, I guess more accurately, I associate Lyme disease with Connecticut. Less so Connecticut with Lyme disease, but it's the only thing I could really think of. Oh yeah, for those wondering if I have Lyme disease, probably not. I think I would have shown symptoms at this point.
Second time this trip, 3 states visited in 1 hour.
Oh sure, there's a rest area once I get to Connecticut. There was one stop I had planned between Boston and New York, the Pez Museum, featuring the world's largest Pez dispenser. Although it doesn't actually dispense a Pez, so can it really be considered the world's largest? I think it'd be really funny if the giant one dispensed regular size candy though, but still dropped it from the top like 10 feet down to the floor. I might need to back up a bit since I don't know if everyone watching knows what Pez are. Basically, what if flavored chalk came in pills and then you shove those pills into collectible sticks? Do they taste good? No, not really, but at least they use regular flavors now instead of the originals, which included chlorophyll? Which, what does that even taste like? Like plants? Green? The process of photosynthesis? The museum had a bit of history, but mostly it was a giant display room for all of the Pez dispensers and merch over the years. Additionally, there was a window into the factory. They gave you a bingo card and you have to find the dispensers and write down the year they were released. I swear I could not get a bingo for the longest time. I was not trying to find as many as possible, I swear. I do like the bingo element. It adds a little bit to what is essentially, look at all of our products. There were some kind of cool dispensers, but there were way more scuffed ones. I'm eternally smiling and I scream. 15 grasshoppers tall, by the way. They also had some President Pez dispensers for sale, except they were all out of the recognizable ones, but stocked to the brim with F-tier memorability ones. Like, yeah, I got you a president. Sorry, they were all of the notable ones, so here's James Buchanan. There was one bush left, but between the time I took a picture and when I went to actually buy the Pez, someone else bought it. Because getting someone a bush Pez dispenser is also very funny.
Sir, a second Pez has hit the dispenser.
It's not even the right bush. Well, I spent way longer talking about the Pez Museum than I thought I would. Time to get back on the road and it's perhaps my new least favorite state. I know I only saw a small portion of Connecticut, but it is maybe my least favorite section of interstate to drive on. Especially outside of a major city. Throughout the whole state, it was always a little stressful. Anecdote time, I noticed the highest variety in out-of-state plates in Connecticut. I'm not talking about just like surrounding New England states either. I'm talking I saw New Mexico's and Florida's and North Carolina's and stuff. I wasn't keeping track, so that could very well be biased because I noticed like 2 out-of-state plates in a row. But, you know, there's not a lot of substance I can say about Connecticut, or at least what I saw of it. I feel like this will inspire some ire from Connecticutites? Connecticuters? What do you call someone from Connecticut? I just realized I have no idea. Oh, Connecticuter was correct. Or nutmegger. Shout out Walter's Hot Dogs. I was behind them in traffic for over an hour. Maybe someone can let me know if they're any good, but I wasn't planning on stopping in Mamaroneck or White Plains.
I like always start the recording like a mile, wait, mile 15. Oh, that was, wait. That was the New York state line. All right, that's been the least marked state crossing the whole trip. But we're back in New York, finally escaped Connecticut. And yeah, New York City, here I come.
Once again, I was parking on the outskirts and taking the train in, but this time I'd be leaving the car for 3 nights, so I hoped everything would be alright when I returned. I took one last look and then got on the train. I wish trains were more common in the US, then I wouldn't have to deal with as much traffic. I could just take the train. I'm pretty sure the only passenger route in Montana is the Empire Builder along the High Line, and that's a decently far distance from where I live. Okay, train rant over. I have now entered New York City. The first night, I met up with one of my friends who some of you might know. It's A.G. Black. You might recognize him from Ag Black D or have no idea who I'm talking about. But shout out A.G. Black, I really appreciate him letting me stay with him while I was in New York. Go subscribe to him on YouTube. Hopefully he starts making videos again, and if he does, they'll be good. The first night, I was kind of tired, didn't really film anything, so we just kind of hung out. Now, my first day in New York, I just kind of wandered around Brooklyn. I kind of forgot I was making a video for a little bit and just wandered for the sake of wandering. I did find a spot with a cool view of Manhattan, though. Now, what did I spend the night doing?
This is the angle. It's just... I'm not even playing Fortnite.
I'm sure there's a lot more Fortnite than you expected from this travel video, but what you have to understand is that they added Hank Hill as a skin, and he might unironically be the #1 character I wanted to play in Fortnite. Okay, it's not like I spent my whole time in New York playing Fortnite. The next day we went out and did stuff. I'm very bad at figuring out what to do stuff with people. On my own, sure, I'll do whatever, but now I have to figure out what to do with twice the number of people? We decided to go to the American Museum of Natural History. Now, you might recognize this museum from that one Ben Stiller movie, Meet the Fockers. Have you ever wanted to go to a zoo where none of the animals move? Because, yep, that's what this felt like. A lot of the exhibits were just taxidermied animals in glass cases, and it's like, yep, there they are. AG said he appreciated the murals in the background more than the dioramas themselves, and yeah, I get that. It's a museum, so time for a bunch of kind of one-off jokes I don't know how to make cohesive or have any sort of flow in the video. In addition, there were exhibits about cultures around the world.
Comedic entertainment.
Western, I don't know, I'm a big fan of Turtle Man and Lowland Maya.
Night at the Museum would have been a very different movie if this guy showed up. I bet this was at least one person's first time seeing a depiction of a penis. Completely changing gears, there were these miniature dioramas which had a depth effect that made it look like they were popping out of the painting. You might think I have a lot to say about dinosaurs, but honestly, not really, since it can be summarized with the fact that they're really fucking cool. Then, in the rocks and minerals section, I found what I could only describe as a video game side quest. Greetings, traveler. Can you find my 5 crystal fish? They should be scattered about within this room. I would go and get them myself, except some rapscallion has nailed my feet to the floor. We managed to find 4 before giving up. They only found 4, that's good enough, I guess. Then we ended with the aquatic room, which really makes the animal displays feel like a glass zoo. Do you think some dad has seen this and they got so mad they made their whole family leave? Of course, the centerpiece of this room is the massive blue whale sculpture hanging from the ceiling. Isn't it crazy that we're not only alive at the same time as them, but also to our knowledge, they're the largest animal to ever exist? AG said it felt the same from when he was a kid and had an update, and I was like, yeah, the vibe definitely felt like that. A bit stuck in the past, much like a museum. After that, AG went home, which fair enough, and I went on a sightseeing montage. Gotta collect as many famous landmarks as I can, like Central Park, home of the world-famous crab obelisk, the Guggenheim, the Met, that one church, Rockefeller Center, New York City Library, the Empire State Building, which from below doesn't look like anything. Now feels like a good time for the tourist rant. Feels hypocritical to complain about tourists visiting when I myself was one, but at the same time, there are so many people who just completely ignore the flow of traffic to where it's infuriating. This happens pretty much everywhere, but it was most prevalent in Manhattan, especially in the tourist zones. Like, why are you stopping in the middle of the crosswalk to take pictures? What the fuck are you doing?
Family of 5, shoulder formation, snail's pace.
I saw someone stop in the turnstile for the subway. If you're confused, maybe watch someone else do it first. I don't know. I know I'm not free of sin. I'm definitely very spatially unaware at times, but man, I try to step aside before zoning out. I'm not saying you gotta be like, move, 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 but like, you gotta go with the flow a little bit. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I went all the way to the Battery on the south end of Manhattan to catch a glimpse of the Statue of Liberty. Epic. The crowds had definitely died down since the rain started, and it was getting late in the day, so maybe there wouldn't be a line for the bull statue. Nope. I don't see the appeal of waiting to take a picture of that, so I moved on. The One World Trade Center looked pretty cool in the fog, but nearby was perhaps my favorite landmark in New York. Octopus statue. Right next to the giant spine. Why is there a giant spine in New York? I don't know, it's a mall, apparently, I guess, I think. I don't know why I say I think. I went in there, it was definitely a mall, whatever. But after that, I went back to AG's place, so you know what time it is.
Do I look like I know what a JPEG is? I just want a picture of a goddamn hot dog.
I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but this was my first time in New York City, and this is what I was doing. My time in New York felt like a nice end to the trip, and like it was time to start heading home. Wait, what do you mean I'm just about a third of the way through? Why did I decide to do this? Oh my god.
It's day 15 of the trip. I'm back in the car. I'm gonna miss train.
It was nice not having to drive for a couple of days, but in case I haven't made it clear, this was a little bit soul-crushing. The overcast, the lack of true rest days, and driving through the most populated city in the US all combined for maybe the lowest low yet. Now I can say I've driven through New York City, though.
At some point, we crossed into Jersey. State number 17 of the trip. We're in Jersey. Okay. There's the welcome sign.
Turned down for what? What? It's hard to tell, but this other sign said, if you drive drunk, you're in for summertime sadness. You ever been in a funk, and then someone says something outlandish, and then it just kind of breaks you a little bit?
Just one more lane, bro, I swear. Just one more lane.
I forgot most of my drive through New Jersey, and it's like I'm seeing all of the clips for the first time while writing this script. After the high of New York, I felt like I was in a fugue state driving through Jersey, and might have been when I regretted this trip most. New Jersey is the only state I've been to where I did not step out of the car. I just didn't see any reason. I was just wanting to get moving.
I do believe that we are in Pennsylvania once again. And it's time to go actually spend some time in Pennsylvania and not just blast through. So, we'll cut to that, I guess.
Philadelphia earns a prize I didn't know any city was competing for since it had my favorite billboards. Granted, the competition isn't strong. It's like a middle schooler amount of effort in a kindergarten world. But other than that, driving through Philadelphia felt pretty bleak. Combination of the weather, my mood, and the endless stretch of concrete was weighing me down.
We pass into Delaware at some point. New state.
Now, because I'm insane, I decided that I was going to check out Philly that day. I can make a plan where the amount of driving is possible, but I'm bad at accounting for mental state. The thing that kept me going was repeating to myself, well, I made it this far. So I figured I might as well make that last extra push. But to take a train out of New York, then drive through Jersey, past Philadelphia to a station that was on the edge of the transit line, because my hotel was nearby and it was cheaper, to take another train into Philly I would take out in the same day was probably not the best decision I ever made. But I did it. I went to downtown Philadelphia and I was kind of broken. I wandered around and didn't know what to do once again, but Philly wasn't as good for wandering in my opinion. I saw the line for the Liberty Bell and asked myself, am I really gonna stand in line by myself just to see a cracked bell? No. Yeah, I wandered around, but I was beat and had nobody but myself to blame. It's a good thing nobody else came along this year because I'm pretty sure the breakneck pace would permanently damage any friendship. Yeah, I don't know, man. I needed a separate day for Philadelphia to actually see it. Okay, back to Delaware.
It's probably the most random state border crossing I've done.
Going back through it, this was a downer of a day, but I promise it picks up.
Dude, some devious fucker had this set to 82 when I walked in. Dog.
It's day... Alright, day 16. Yesterday was rough. But today, I'm just planning on driving to Virginia. But I do have one thing that I figured I could do before getting stuck in traffic all day, so...
I immediately messed up.
Guess I'm going right.
I went on a 10-minute long detour because I didn't realize which lane I needed to be in. I feel like a lot of people just try to squeeze in at the last second, but nah, I'll just go where the road takes me and I'll figure it out. I had found something that I think really matched the energy of the Big Loop 2. The big cities are nice and all, but they kind of overwhelm me, and I needed to find something that matched my vibe. So I found a location that I hoped would mentally reset me. The Paradox Vineyard, I'm kidding. As I continued to drive, the roads started to get more and more rural. It felt good to not have to worry about 4 lanes of traffic. I really needed a rural, hilly drive with some curves and inclines, even though kind of small, but whatever. Although at this point it felt like I had pretty much driven all the way to the East Coast just to see cornfields. Eventually the roads got a bit more rural than I was expecting, but I had found what I was looking for. But first...
Wawa food review time. Normally, I'm kind of like hesitant about restaurants that are attached to gas stations. Those are usually like a separate entity, because I've gotten food poisoning from them multiple times. At the start of this trip, I was like, man, I don't want to just go to like the regional chains. It's a road tripping day. It feels like road tripping food. For the price and convenience, I'd say it's pretty good. Looks like dehydrated piss. Kind of tastes like it, but carbonated. For the price point, to actually feel satiated for like $8 to $9, kind of crazy. I might be a fan of Wawa now. Normally I'm pretty whatever about regional chains, because it's like, I don't know, man, it's still a chain. But Wawa, you know what, I give it a thumbs up.
Now you're probably wondering why I've driven out here to the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. This is probably the first time in a while that I've been somewhere and then like no one else has been around, which is pretty nice. You know, that's one reason why, but there is something specific. Oh, what is it? You have no patience, come on.
It felt so good to touch grass again and then just have like nobody around. I'm being so serious when I say that this is what I needed, just like a stroll through the woods. This is a vibe I hadn't felt in a while. Maybe not even since the start of the trip. Just me, nature, and larger bugs that I'm used to. Oh, another state line crossed on foot. I'm back in Delaware. Coming up wasn't the original reason I stopped here, but there's a monument to this weird oddity in Delaware's border. You know how it arcs at the top? Well, that arc isn't quite even with its western border. There's this tiny little straight line, and this stone marks where the arc ends. But I still had to get to where I came here for, so deeper into the woods I went. This forest had a completely different vibe than what I was used to. I'm all about the coniferous, so this deciduous was quite the change of pace for me. I feel like if you're still watching, you're a fan of trees, so let me know in the comments what type of tree you prefer. Are you dedicated to deciduous or a coniferous concubine? Surely I can think of a better word than that.
Well, this is the main thing I stopped here to see. It's the tri-point of Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. It is somehow less impressive than the Arc monument thing, which is just like a random spot in Delaware's border, and this is the tri-point, but yep, it's shorter. It's got letters on it and a slug. I've now been to 2 state tri-points.
Well, now I gotta walk back. I saw this weird tree. Also, this tree where a 6-year-long relationship is documented and their breakup is now preserved in bark. Equally as interesting is this fungus. Now, walking around in the forest was nice, but it was a lot more humid than I'm used to, and I knew that it was only get worse. This plant is a visual representation of what humidity feels like to me.
Well, based on the road change, I'd say we've entered Maryland, which is state number 20, I think. That's where I need to turn.
I mean, I guess I already entered Maryland when I walked around the Tri-Point, but now I was in Maryland for real. I will be counting the Tri-Point as setting foot in Maryland, though. I've also set foot in Maryland in the past. You've heard of Blue Cox, but have you heard of Blue Ball Road? I guess that was the most interesting part of the Maryland drive.
So I realize an additional reason as to why I would want someone to do this with next year. I say that as if I'm gonna attempt this again. I'm not doing this again next year. I need someone to be like, hey man, we gotta eat, you know? I'm like, no, I'm too locked in. I must continue driving. I cannot stop my momentum. Then when I stop my momentum, I crash. And maybe today the reason I have a bit more energy is because I actually ate lunch. Who'da thunk? Also, just having like a food co-pilot would be nice. Just being able to find a nice spot in advance.
I also drove past Baltimore, but it was never part of any plan, so...
Fuck you, Baltimore!
Chevy Chase 1 mile. Believe we're crossing into Virginia right now. I don't know why I said it like that. We're in Virginia, I think. I think that was the crossing. Oh, yep, there it is. Virginia is for lovers.
The DC metro area was my least favorite city to drive through. I feel like if this series reaches a certain amount of people, at least one person is going to be mad at my driving just because I'm not tailgating or whatever, and it's like, if you hate other drivers so much, just ride the bus. When I went to check in at the place I was originally going to stay at, I went into the lobby and nobody was there, so after waiting for 15 minutes, I just left and found a new place. I also definitely dodged a bullet since there was an influx of reviews since I booked that mentioned bed bugs and poor service. In order to get a new place nearby, I spent a bit more than I wanted, and it was probably the most financially concerned I got on the whole trip. Also, the first place didn't even mark me as a no-show. I got an email later asking me to rate my stay. Unrelated, it's a good thing that restaurants near the Pentagon are super busy, right? This day, I'd be visiting DC, one of the only places on the trip I had been before.
So I have many useless cards in my wallet, right? But one of them is an 11-year-old DC Metro card. So we're gonna see if it still works. Who'd have thunk that I'd actually get another use out of this, but it's been in my wallet for 11 years, which I realize is almost half my life.
It had 10 cents on it. I'm doing the train thing again, and my new hotel was right next to the station, so no park and ride or long-ass walk that morning. I was back to being excited to see a city. Having been to DC before offered a small amount of familiarity, even if it was 11 years ago. I went to the National Mall, because what else are you to do in DC? Apparently a lot, and I should have looked into our stuff beforehand. I wandered around near the backside of the Lincoln Memorial. Naturally, it was under construction. I walked across this bridge into Virginia just to get another state crossing by foot, I guess. I don't know why I did half the things I did, man. So cool thing about the National Mall is that pretty much everything along it is free. You can just walk up and in stuff, although much of it does require reservations. Not the Lincoln Memorial though, which you can just walk in and see Lincoln on a chair. On one of the inscriptions on the side, there's a typo where they chiseled the wrong letter and had to fill it in, so there's your fun fact of the day. Although I guess a typo has to be typed, so what would it be, like a chiselo then? The steps here offer a nice view of the mall and the Washington Monument. Also, it was balls hot and very humid here, which made me dread the South more and more because I knew it'd only get worse. I hate walking through air that clings to my skin. Washington Memorial, the color changes halfway through because they've run out of the original bricks, I guess. It's free as well to go up, but requires reservations, and you know the theme of this part of the trip. I went off the mall to find a convenience store so I didn't die of dehydration. Nearly everyone who wasn't a tourist was wearing a suit. Gee, I wonder why. I think I'd die if I had to wear a suit in this weather. Who'd have thunk that the city with a location based on a compromise wouldn't have the most optimal geography to live in? I need to escape the air, so why not check out the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History? Didn't I visit a natural history museum in the last part? Yes. Have I visited this one before? Yes. But one of AG's comments when we went to the museum in New York was that it felt like it hadn't changed since he was a kid, and I wanted to see if the same was true of the Smithsonian. But it was pretty different from how I remember it, which is a good thing. Tag your friends. The exhibits made better use of the space and felt more dynamic rather than just a glass box zoo. However, there's still some iconic classics like the Rotunda elephant that have remained unchanged. But where I noticed the most change was the dinosaur exhibit, because it had a complete overhaul from when I was a kid. Just look at these photos 12-year-old me took compared to now. They also had some cool miniatures, but once again, the displays were way more dynamic, with scenes being created with the remains rather than simple poses. Plus, they've got the Wankel T-Rex on display, which is notable because it's one of the most complete T-Rex skeletons found, and it was found in Montana. Now, I've seen it before because right now it's on loan from Museum of the Rockies, so it's a neat little piece of home to see so far away. Then the animal exhibits are still a little bit of a still life zoo, but I do like how it's not just all in individual glass boxes that are pretty much identical, with like a little bit of a diorama. There's also rocks, no side quests this time, space, night, and phones. I was confused on how phones were in the Natural History Museum, but a lot of it was talking about how the production of phones affects the natural world, like all the materials that go into a phone, and all the separate everyday objects that phones have replaced. You know how I used to carry a microscope around all the time? It's so bothersome. Speaking of things that belong in the museum, a most interesting man in the world meme. Brought to you by Green and QuickMeme.com. There's an entire exhibit that's just bones, as well as a bug zoo. I like looking at bugs, but I also like keeping some distance between me and them. When I say bugs in this context, I'm referring to members of the phylum Arthropoda along with some other invertebrates. I'm aware that most of these are not of the order Hemiptera, also known as the true bugs. I'm simply using common vernacular. If those rocks earlier weren't enough to satisfy you, you can take one home for the low price of $2,125. I was imagining a person lugging an amethyst crystal through the National Mall, but they ship it to you. Speaking of lugging through the National Mall, back to the wet skin. Oh, it's raining now. Cool. Extra wet skin. Guess I'll take shelter in whatever the Hirshhorn Museum is. The Hirshhorn Museum is a modern and contemporary art museum featuring such works of art as Naked Pile. I do think that dismissing nudity in art is puritanical and counterproductive, but sometimes you look at something and think, man, whoever made this really wanted to get their friends nude in a pile. What modern art museum would be complete without a room with disturbing visuals and eerie noises playing the whole time? Pretty cool museum, probably one of the shorter ones to visit, but I'd check it out if you like modern art. Air and Space needed a reservation, so Capitol building time.
I sure do hope no one photoshops me committing nefarious deeds.
Too late. At this point, just started downpouring, and I did not prepare for this much rain, so I went back to my hotel sopping wet. I was the wettest I had ever been without being like fully submerged, and stood on the train the whole way back just drenched and leaking all over the place. In the evening, when the rain cleared, I went out for some very big loop style shenanigans that involved going into a random suburban neighborhood.
Did I really go out of my way just to visit a random suburb of DC because of a weird little map fact it has, even though there's nothing really here? Yes. It was on the same train line. It's a win-win.
This is Falls Church, the smallest county equivalent in the 50 states, with an area of about 2 square miles. Every city in Virginia is what's known as an independent city, which also operates at the same level as county government. I guess there was a church in Falls Church. Take that back, there's 2 Falls churches. Muffler. I'm sure someone is going to suggest something I didn't know about, but there aren't too many guides for things to do in Falls Church, Virginia. Minus the rain, pretty good day.
Alright, day 18. The sun's out. Still pretty muggy though. But tonight has one of the spots I think I'm most excited to stay, so hopefully it lives up to my expectations. But first, I have to escape the DC metro area.
Not a lot to say about the drive out of DC. There was a lot of traffic though. I miss trains. Eventually I reached the beautiful Virginia Beach Metro.
Alright, state number 22, North Carolina. Also a state I've been to before. While I'm in North Carolina, I do want to try a North Carolina style barbecue, but from like how I've heard it described, it doesn't sound good. It's like, yeah, we don't use sauce because it's bad if you have sauce on it. It should only have a little bit of vinegar. I'm like, that sounds kind of unpleasant. I'm not a big fan of just vinegar on food. So before any North Carolinians kill me, I still have to try it, you know? I got my crabs from Dirty Dick's? Ha! Ha! I'm sexually repressed.
I was heading into the Outer Banks, a collection of barrier islands and one of the most touristy places in North Carolina, as it's all beach all the way. I don't know, there might be some marshes or something. I passed by Kitty Hawk, which is where the Wright brothers had their first successful flight, but of course the monument is only open from 9 to 5. When looking at potential places to procure pork, I saw this place which had all 1 or 5-star reviews. I did not go for it. I instead went with the one with the pig wife persona.
We have the most cursed way to eat barbecue. I didn't think North Carolina barbecue had sauce, but it's Eastern style and Western style. I don't know, man. And a unrefrigerated cheer wine in a can.
I know that cheer wine is a bottle type soda, but they were sold out of those, and I didn't have the patience to hop between every store.
I've created a big wedge. I just got meat. I can definitely taste the vinegar, but I thought I would hate it. But it's pretty good. I do like it. I don't know how authentic the Outer Banks are, but it's pretty good.
After driving past tons of touristy type towns, I reached the Cape Hatteras National Seashore, which was way more my speed. The star of this part was quite low, but my mood had been slowly rising while the sun was setting. I crossed some bridges, saw the ocean, just a nice pleasant drive after Virginia, which might have been my least favorite state to drive through. These dunes protruding on either side of the road provide a whole new landscape to observe, and it's crazy to think that just 3 days ago I was regretting this trip, and now, here I was, living life. I want to stop at the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, but it was, say it with me, under construction.
Dude. Dog, look at it.
I still stopped at the beach real quick though. I tried to get a nice shot of the sunset, but I was a bit too late. Still, clouds were quite impressive.
So the place I thought I was staying tonight, I actually booked last year, and it's a good thing I double checked because I almost just got on a ferry that would have stranded me on an island pretty much overnight. So, yeah, good thing I double checked.
The campsite I stayed at was still lovely and right next to the beach.
I feel like I've let a lot of states down, but I feel like I managed to cram a lot of North Carolina things into half a day. Like, I got cheer wine at a Harris Teeter, I had some barbecue, and I'm on the Cape Hatteras shoreline. I actually don't know how to pronounce it, but we ballin'. This is the best I've felt since New York, dude. Like,
I then spent too long trying to get the perfect cursed selfie.
shit, dude. Where did I come from?
In the distance, a storm was brewing, and I would not be getting any sleep that night. Unfortunate end to an uplifting day. The storm passed, and as expected, I slept terribly. It was so humid. So this is the ferry I almost got on last night. Where's it heading? This is the ferry to Ocracoke Island, and what's cool is that it's free. The ferry runs pretty frequently in the summer, and I was surprised that so many people were going to this small island. I guess it's probably a common day trip. As you can see, you're allowed to get up and wander around the ferry, and it's pretty refreshing. There's a nice sea breeze, the sun's out, the trip is going good right now. After about an hour-long ride, I arrived at Ocracoke Island. The island definitely has a more isolated feel since the only way to reach it is by boat. However, there's 2 ferry ports, and the other is on the opposite side of the island in the village of Ocracoke, and it's more popular. The plan was to head down there, take that ferry, and continue down the Carolina coast. What's there to see on the island? Horses, of course. Also, lots of beaches. I mean, the island is just one long beach pretty much, and since it doesn't have as much tourist infrastructure built up, the island feels a lot more laid back. I dipped my toes in a little bit, cause yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? It's weird to see clams move. Here's the village of Ocracoke at the southish end of the island, and the island is one of those places where you rent a golf cart to get around. But here, I realized my biggest mistake yet.
So I'm on Ocracoke Island, which is where I thought I was going to be staying last night, and got on the ferry to this morning, except I didn't realize that the ferry, to get out the other way, requires reservations in advance. So now I gotta take the free ferry back and go all the way around. Like, I could not find anything about reservations the last time I checked the ferry website, so it turns out that the sentence I remember reading about the ferries, that tickets can be purchased at the ferry terminal, I think was just referring to the passenger ferry. I gotta drive all the way around, dude.
So I had progressed a negative distance since I still had to backtrack to where I started, including the hour-long ferry, and undertake an even longer drive than I was planning. It's not the worst thing in the world. I'd still be able to make it to my destination that night, but man, this is gonna be a brutal day of driving. So let's do it all again.
This is gonna be the longest backtrack of the trip, I hope. I mean, there's worse places to backtrack, but still. Oh, dang. This is like the first major mess up I've done. It's sticky out, dude. It's very sticky out.
It's getting sticky, sticky, sticky. Ooh.
There's gonna be a lot of bridges today getting back to the mainland. So at about 3 p.m., I was no longer backtracking and could begin driving new roads. I'd be leaving the coastal scenery behind and be driving through this forest for the rest of the day. At a certain point, if all I do is film bridges because they stand out, then do they really stand out?
I am really, like, at this moment, like, just like, what am I doing? You know, like, I'm in North Carolina. I've been here before. I've been to Fayetteville a long time ago. Like, maybe there are more people I could have asked to meet up with, but then at the same time, part of me was too nervous to ask because I feel like I'm violating a personal boundary. It's like, I don't know if I know them well enough to ask. And in addition to that, I did put, like, there's a lot of things where it's like, yeah, dude, I just poorly planned this out. It's not that I don't have friends who wouldn't be willing to do this. It's not like, I can't be like, hello, quit your job for almost 2 months. If there's any reason I'd want this video series to blow up, it's so that I could convince at least one of my friends, hey, quit your job, we're going on a big road trip, I've got you. I'm just gonna pay you to be my friend for a month and sit in a car, or maybe not a car, maybe on a train or a plane. Yeah, but that's not how the world works.
This day was kind of a blur after Ocracoke. I forgot how low I was feeling. Obviously the things I was saying were wishful thinking, cause yeah, most jobs you can't just quit for a month and then come back and act like everything's fine, and good luck just getting a job in the first place. I'm super lucky for having the time and resources to be able to do this in the first place. The trip alone was a privilege, and yet doing it alone felt like an ordeal. I do appreciate the people who have watched and enjoyed and interacted with all my content, since that was how I was able to do this. And if you don't like my content, I don't know why you're still here. You've only been encouraging me by watching this. Of course, the feelings of doubt I had when driving have persisted even as I write this script, and I'm sure as I edit, and right now as I record, and even when it's posted and you're watching. Part of me will feel like this whole thing was a waste of time, money, and effort. So I hope at least one of you is entertained, and if you've been watching this series, thank you. It truly does mean a lot. The tone right now makes it feel like we're nearing the end of a part, but nah, we gotta keep going.
On a lighter note, new state almost here. I can see the Mexican hat that means we're gonna be entering South Carolina. Hats around the world? Oh my goodness, I love collecting hats. Maybe I do have to stop. Oh, we're in South Carolina, by the way, new state. It's number 23 of the trip.
All I remember after that is the clouds in the distance, since they were nice clouds, and trying to relax a bit and appreciate the small joys. So I'm driving through the dark and I finally arrived in Summerville, South Carolina. The hotel I checked into had this clown clock in the lobby.
It's day 20. You know what that means. At the end of this day, I'll be halfway done, at least time-wise. I think distance-wise, well, I added a lot of miles yesterday, so I don't think I'm quite halfway done yet. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I figured I should use the 3 mirrors somehow, because, like, this is a ridiculous setup for, like, a budget motel.
Starting the day off with a little bit of random side roads driving, really getting a feel for South Carolina. I feel like I gotta get a little bit of random side roads in every state.
Palmettos! Oh my god, it's the thing! It's the thing! Get on the interstate, immediate traffic jam. I think the original idea was like, oh, I'd spend like the afternoon in Charleston and then go spend the evening in Savannah or whatever, but no, I'm not gonna do that. I decided I'm gonna pick one city and spend more time there rather than kind of half-assing 2 cities. Gonna go wander around Savannah for a little bit, and see how long before I want to die of heat stroke.
Exciting scenery on the interstate here, such as dirt piles.
I made an impromptu stop because I felt like I hadn't been doing enough of those at the Savannah National Wildlife Refuge, and it's a wetlands.
There was a loop you could drive around here to see birds, I guess. Those are some majestic cranes in the distance. The forest section was kind of neat, but there's wetlands areas all over the US and honestly don't feel too different from each other. Once you zoom in, the differences between wetlands across the US appear, but at a wide scale, most wetlands feel pretty similar, with the scenery in the background changing, but at a glance, they're wetlands. I did need to get a bit of touching grass in time before getting to Savannah. Really glad I wasn't going the other way here.
Oh, wait. But now we're in Georgia, state number 24? Yeah, I thought that bridge is gonna be the state crossing, but, nope, that's just a big-ass bridge.
And now I'm on that bridge. It's time to check out Savannah. I feel like a broken record at this point. Savannah was a cool city to wander through, but once again, I feel like this experience would be improved if I had someone else with me, yada yada yada. I do need to recreate one thing I saw, though.
They not like us.
Well, Savannah was cool, but as you can see, I'm glistening, and that's just out of my skin. Every activity here feels like it's meant to be done with at least one other person. As far as tourist traps go, it feels really like a city. As far as cities go, it feels really like a tourist trap. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but that's just like the Riverwalk part, because I'm assuming it's like, oh, it'll feel more like a city outside of that, but it's just going to be more, like, it's just going to be standard America, like, suburb, hello. Definitely a city I would want to visit with someone, you know? If only that were the case. I mean, I was originally going to meet up with someone here, but, you know, things happen.
Today's hotel has this very long hallway in my room. You might be wondering, what is this? Considering the bathroom, it's definitely not that deep. So why do I have this long hallway? Well, the elevator. The elevator is right there. So I'm sure that won't be annoying at all.
It surprisingly wasn't.
There are some days going into this trip that I knew would be hell, and today is one of those days.
Because today I'm driving across basically the entirety of Florida, so let's get into it.
That's the plot for today. But before I left Georgia, I figured I should try to get some peaches, so I stopped at Georgia Peach World.
Unfortunately, didn't get any peaches because you had to buy at least a basket full, and I'm like, most of those are gonna rot. I just know it, so like that'd be a waste for me to get. But I got a peach slushie, and this is really good, so when in Rome, I guess.
Rome, Georgia is actually up here, but I digress.
Oh, this, okay. Alright, well, there it goes. The main sign was covered up by the truck, but we're here. State number 25, Florida. I think I've already been driving for over an hour, but we're just getting started. So many times when I'm driving, I'm just like, man, this video is going to be so boring. There's just so much driving. I'm like, no one has to watch all of this. 8 hours will be condensed into like maybe 30 seconds, you know?
Nah, you're gonna have to experience a bit more than that, though. Unless you skip past this part. I don't know why you would, though. You'd miss out on all the, strip malls with pine forest. The first large city I passed through was Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville is interesting because by city proper, it's the most populated city in Florida, but it's far from the most relevant. Despite being the most populated proper, it's the fourth most populous metro. It's also one of the largest cities in the U.S. by area. This is due to the fact that it's something known as a city-county balance, which aren't true consolidated city counties because while all the land that would traditionally be unincorporated is part of the city, there are still usually other small incorporated places. While Jacksonville is nearly converse with Duval County, there's a small exception, that being Baldwin, which is in Duval County but not part of Jacksonville. It's also means that Jacksonville has very few suburbs, and most of the Jacksonville metro is city proper. Also, all this is off the top of my head as I'm not a fact checker because I'm just sorry that that is not interesting to you. However, I feel like most people aren't interested in unusual statistical regions. Now, where was I? Daytona Beach, of course. I could have sworn I was just in Jacksonville. It certainly doesn't feel like I've been driving that long, but I guess it's been another hour. Huh. Hey, do you think I'm allowed to park here? I don't have the best mental map of Florida, so when I pass by towns, I have no idea how far down I am on the peninsula. Like, I know a few and roughly where they are, but I had no idea if I was making good time or not, or my total progress. I was kind of losing my sense of time and distance here. Every city felt pretty much the same. Here's a stretch of forest and some strip malls. It felt like Groundhog Day of driving. I know that's how a lot of America feels sometimes, but there's pretty much no variations in terrain, and all the cities felt vaguely the same size, and there weren't any unique landmarks, so here's one of the tallest hills in Florida maybe, and it's probably a landfill.
I think it's really funny that adult stores advertise with billboards, because it's like, yes, I'm driving along and I see, oh, forgot my lube at home. I'm really bored right now. Florida all looks the same.
Watching this footage back, I know I did this drive, but it feels like a fever dream, like there were fake memories implanted in me. Then it started raining. This was probably the most eventful thing that happened that day. I know it's trite and cliche, but the rain was rapid here. Truly a downpour and then nothing. Rinse and repeat for an hour. Everyone says their state's weather changes so fast, but I gotta give it to Florida for having the quickest weather changes I've seen, at least when it comes to rain. Alright, I've tortured y'all long enough. I'll skip forward who knows how many hours. Tired of force? Cause it's all concrete now, baby. Guess who accidentally took a wrong turn, and then when I tried to correct it, accidentally went into a suburb because I thought the whole Miami area was a grid. Silly me. How could I forget the horrid layouts between the main grids of Florida? It's kind of weird how the Miami area just stops. There isn't like a natural sprawl to the west of this road. There's just nothing, pretty much. On the approach to the Keys, I started to ease up a little since I was almost there. There were some crazy clouds in the distance, and as I descended on the bridge into the Keys, it felt like I could finally relax, being on the home stretch of the day. The Keys themselves feel like the rest of the America, but with more palm trees. Since the Keys are very narrow, it feels like one long strode with some bridges in between. Weirdly enough, the street layouts felt almost like the plains. The rest of the vibe definitely didn't, just the way the road was laid out. Soon after arriving in the Keys, though, I got a call they were closing the gate to my campsite in half an hour. Google Maps said it'd take 26 minutes to get there, so it was a race against the clock. If I didn't make it in time, what would my plan end up being? Google Maps overshot for once. They didn't realize I could just take a left turn into the campsite rather than like doing some weird backtracking thing. Plus the state park sent me the gate code, so it was fine. When I got to the campground itself, I was surprised to learn that it was empty, which kind of unnerved me since this was the Florida Keys, and when I booked months ago, every other campsite was booked up. But I was the only one here? Also, the sites are a bit of a walk from the parking lot, and they're across this swamp on Golden Orb Trail. Where have I heard that combination of words before? Oh, no. There's also a bunch of something scuttling around on the boardwalk. What had I gotten myself into? Why did I think camping in Florida would be a good idea? Starting the day out with what's important in life. Lizards. An early morning drive to the Keys was just what I needed. After driving through all of Florida yesterday, a slower paced drive in a tropical paradise felt right. Since almost nobody gets up before like 10 around here, I was able to enjoy the scenery without someone right up on my ass. Driving through the Keys is such a unique experience. The size and amount of bridges truly makes it feel like a highway of the sea. I still had to drive like an hour and a half this morning because the Keys are pretty long, it turns out, but eventually I reached Key West, where I saw all these cool things like chicken, tree, and the start of US Highway 1. I was still pretty stressed out even though I was in Key West, and the only thing I needed to do that day was visit the southernmost point. Must be all the crushing weight of modern day existence and driving several hours almost every day for about 3 weeks. But surely I can ignore that for a little bit. Time to walk to the southernmost point. Maybe because it was early in the day, but the line wasn't too bad, and once again I got someone to take my picture. Second extreme point of the trip down. Now my goal was to find a beach. Luckily it says there's a beach just down the street. My goal is to find a beach not covered in sargassum. Sargassum is a word that just feels right to say in an old sailor pirate voice. I know you just tried it out. Even further down the way, there was this beach which still had a bit of sargassum, but it would do. Or not. It's a lot of warnings. I guess I'll find something else to do. After wandering around for a little bit, I decided to visit the Ernest Hemingway house. I don't actually know too much about him. I know he wrote some books, some of which I've heard of, and then he shot himself. The house itself is pretty stuffy, so I made a beeline for the felines. Ernest Hemingway was given a polydactyl cat by a ship captain named Snow White. The cat, not the captain. Polydactyl mean they have more toes than usual, and supposedly all the cats on the property are now its descendants, but there are probably other ancestors. Well, I mean, there had to be at least one other, but you know. You can pet them, but they're just napping around, so I tried not to bother them. This one here was a large lad, to say the least. Fine, I'll talk about the house a little bit. Apparently he wrote over half of his works here, including some I've heard of. Alright, back to the cats. I couldn't actually tell how many toes they had. I wasn't trying to be invasive like that. Apparently only about half are polydactyl, but there's 59 of them, so at least one of these has got to be polydactyl. There is also a cat cemetery since there have been so many cats scampering around throughout the years. I would recommend you pause to read all of them and comment your favorite. My favorites are Bubba, US1, and Princess Six Toes. Also, I don't know if they're allowed to wander off property or if they're like, yeah, I don't know, why bother? They got everything they need there, you know? I didn't see any cats beyond the walls. Now I want to find an actual beach not covered in rotting seaweed. Word on the street is that Fort Zachary Taylor State Park is the best beach in Key West, and yeah, you gotta pay for it. It does have a fort, which isn't really what people are here for, but I figured I'd wander around it for a little bit, really get my money's worth. It provides some nice shade and a bit of a vantage point, and more importantly, there's iguanas! Okay, I'll talk about the beach. It's a beach.
This point here is actually further south, and the further south moved those rocks, but none of the extreme point monuments are actually at the extreme point,
Yeah, the beach is nice, but I hate it here. The air was molesting me. I had loose skin from walking with sand between my toes. I went for a swim and cut my foot on the only rock there. Alright, time to head back to my campsite.
Is that a blimp? One of the last blimps? Or an airship? A dirigible? Or a zeppelin, perhaps?
Driving back from Key West, it's kind of a vibe. I'm not good at island time, where it's like, oh, we're just kind of lackadaisically moving along. We're kind of sludging. I'm not in a rush, but I'm like, I'm trying to get from point A to point B. You know what I mean? I'm unable to relax, mainly because it's sticky. I guess at this point, it means I'm finally heading in the direction of home. So, onward we go. It only gets more north from here.
Also, what I thought were giant spiders last night were crabs.
Why are you moving like a fucking spider, dude? Chill.
All that's left to do is watch the sunset and go to bed.
Do not go camping in Florida. Look at all that. Like, that's just from this morning. That's before I had time to get bug spray. Like, come on, man. It's not even really showing up. Oh, God. Holy shit. What the fuck? Let's get the fuck out of here, man. Day 23?
When I woke up, my arms were swarmed with these little gnats, and now I have the skin patterning of a pygmy seahorse. I've probably never been happier to leave a campsite in my life. Did you know some places in the US, the colloquial term for raining while the sun is shining is called the devil's beating his wife? One last stop in the Keys, Big Lobster.
So, I just spent 2 nights camping in a swampy spot up the Keys, so I was like, what would be fun? What if I went to an even bigger swamp?
So we're in the Everglades. This is what all of Florida used to look like, I guess. How did this become, like, the 4th most populated state? I think it's 4th. 3rd? It's in the top 5. All the insects here are massive. It feels like I'm wearing the air.
I live in an area with some big beasts, so I was prepared for gators, but not for grasshoppers the size of my hand. These are eastern lubber grasshoppers, and they were everywhere here.
I like bugs, but don't fly at me, fuck you.
I'd never been somewhere that had noticeable bug roadkill before. The road was seasoned with bug corpses, and I feel like they must not be appetizing at all for the local wildlife. The Everglades are truly flat. I thought I'd seen flat, but this was flat. Even the ocean has waves. The pass I crossed had an elevation of 3 feet. It's strange that there is less land between my feet and sea level than there is between my head and my feet. I guess that's true on most beaches, but I was a decent amount inland. I did see this magnificent creature, and when I stepped outside to observe it, I was swarmed with bugs. They weren't even trying to bite me, really. They were just flying at me. The Everglades might be the most inhospitable place I've ever been. The whole time I had this feeling that this is not somewhere I'm supposed to be. Then the first gator I saw was actually a baby, which is kind of crazy. Might have been a crocodile, I'm not sure. Florida has both. Point is, I saw a baby gator. Eventually I reached the visitor center, and it was a center for visitors. Some dioramas, information, and views of the water. I do feel like not going out on a boat, like I missed out on a huge part of the Everglades. Apparently you can camp out on a platform way out the way, which sounds tempting since there aren't as many bugs out there. I did stop at one trail just to hike for a bit and to say I did, but again, it's a swamp and the air is heavy. On the way back, I spotted another softshell turtle and tried to scare it out of the road, but it wouldn't budge, so hopefully it was fine. I saw a sign for a historic missile site and thought, that sounds like it could be interesting, but it wasn't. Lastly, I stopped at another visitor center and walked around, looked at some fish, and hoped that I would see a full-grown gator. I kind of thought they'd be everywhere here, like you'd have to worry about tripping over them, but I didn't see them once in the park.
Classic Google Maps taking me down some whack-ass fucking nowhere road.
I love driving through random Florida neighborhoods. So, this is the Void. I knew that Florida was the flattest state going in, but it's astonishing. Prairie states ain't got nothing on the level of flatness here. I made one last stop that day at Big Cypress National Preserve because surely they would have some gators. I saw a lot of gar and some other fishes, but no gators. Turns out I'm blind and there's one just like right there. Just down the path there was a whole horde of gators. Actually, I don't know what the term for a group of gators is. A congregation. Huh. Yeah, I don't think I'm guessing that one at trivia night. Seeing a taxidermy gator might be the closest experience to seeing a live one out of any animal, except for maybe sloths, but I don't think I've seen a taxidermied sloth. I'm not going near them, but unless provoked, they don't do a lot but bask. Although I did witness one swimming around. Inside the visitor center, they asked the bold question, can women wrestle alligators? I mean, they can, but I feel like they'd prefer not to. Seems like one of those why women live longer than men type situations. Finally, I passed through some more cypress swamp before reaching Naples and finally taking a real shower.
So, understandably, I've hit a wall. Today I'm driving all the way back up through Florida and then through the edge of the Panhandle, so this would probably be my longest day of driving yet. I think at some point in here I needed a day where I'm just like, alright, I'm doing nothing. I'm not even going to the beach, because the beach, it's hot. I gotta worry about bugs, and I gotta worry about sunscreen, and I gotta worry about sand getting everywhere. I just need a day where I do nothing.
Not a lot to say here. I drove up north through Florida. This was probably the most interesting thing that happened all day.
Come on. Yeah, let's go! 200,000!
Real top-notch content here.
Vasectomy.
I did step outside at least once, so it's not all car footage today. Back to the slog.
What do you think they sell there? Confederate RVs? Oh no, that's just some guy's house. Alright.
Wow, look, there's hills. Crazy. Hills is a strong word. Now, I'd seen so many billboards for Florida Orange World, so I figured I should stop at least one. It was about what I expected. Big touristy shop, lots of Florida and orange specific products. The billboards also mentioned baby gators and, think they need a new tank. They need a new tank.
The orange place sold oranges alone, so I got an orange, but I might have made the wrong decision because this one's skin just did not want to come off. This might be a rough orange to eat, but it's a really good orange. This is the most cursed way of eating an orange too. Just monkey time. You're meant to just fucking bite into that shit.
Driving through Florida is so weird. It truly distorts time because I had been on the road for 6 hours, but I did not realize it. The clouds in the distance were starting to look concerning though.
Flash flood warning. I haven't really dealt with too much of that. So I've gone through the 5 stages of grief, honestly, during this trip. And now I'm at acceptance. Like, flash flood ahead, like, I guess today might be more interesting than I thought. But also, one more thing, finally out of Eastern time, back in Central. I mean, it's not like Central's my favorite, but it's better than Eastern. I don't like being in Eastern time. It feels wrong. Everything happens too late in the day. But that makes sense, hopefully.
Driving through the Panhandle, I caught glimpses of some of the craziest lightning I had ever seen. It looked like the clouds had veins, the lightning, the life force of the sky. But since I wasn't just constantly recording, I missed a lot of it, and I was starting to have storage issues at this time. Who'da thunk 3 weeks of videos would fill up memory? But I swear, every time after I stopped recording because I wasn't going to capture anything, the sky would light up and it would be bright as day for a second. What you're seeing now is the best of what I got, but there was a lot of failed attempts. I was driving through the dark for a while, but it was kind of nice. Sometimes a nighttime drive feels good, especially when you're the only one on a road. Bathroom frog. I had camped pretty much at the far end of the Florida Panhandle along the Gulf Coast and started out the morning by seeing where I had camped the night before. This is the Fort Pickens section of the Gulf Islands National Seashore, and it was a pretty nice area.
This might be some of the best weather I've had on the trip. I mean, the sun's out, there's some clouds, there's a nice sea breeze, the air doesn't feel like it's clinging to my skin anymore. But yeah, I mean, just look at this vibe. There's also not too many bugs around. I think I might finally be starting to understand why some people move to Florida. Well, time to leave it. We're finally leaving Florida today, heading over to New Orleans, where I'll be staying in a hostel. Which I'm sure to some people who know me are like, really, you're staying in a hostel in New Orleans? I'm like, yep. This is probably the most I'll be pushing my social limits on this trip. You know, maybe I'll make some new friends. I mean, if it gets weird enough, I will probably just bail. Reality, probably nothing will happen interesting.
So it's time to leave the barrier islands behind and push onward to brave new frontiers like Pensacola. In pretty much every state, there is a street that looks like this.
Hurry back. Oh my goodness. It feels so good to be Florida. Sweet home Alabama. The sometime over the bridge was in Alabama, but now we're officially in Alabama.
I mean, it's not as if I'll see a sudden shift crossing into Alabama, but it's about the mentality.
As you may have guessed by me not crossing over on the interstate and driving on random rural roads, I found something weird, so let's go check it out.
It's a dinosaur sculpture in the woods. Nah, there's more than that. There's this whole marina with strange sculptures, like this lady in the water, and nearby there's the main attraction, Bamahenge. It's Stonehenge made out of plastic. Normally I love random roadside nonsense like this, but for some reason this made me feel hollow. For whatever reason, this is what broke me. Like, yep, it's Stonehenge in the middle of woods in Alabama. I've probably gone further out of the way for dumber, but something inside me died here. Maybe it's the fact I've been on the road so long, maybe it's the humidity, maybe it's my crushing loneliness I definitely did not push down. If I wasn't already halfway through, this might have been my breaking point. As positive as I was trying to stay, oh man, I was being worn down. Look, it's Mobile.
Mississippi.
Stopped at a rest area to say I've stepped foot in Mississippi. Now what I did next, I don't entirely know why I did. It's probably due to some sense of dread related to staying in a hostel and trying to find ways to prolong my drive there, but I decided to drive along the main tourist strip along the Gulf Shore in Mississippi, and guess what? I took a wrong turn when trying to get there, but if I didn't, I wouldn't have seen this sign. Was it worth it? Leave a like if you think so. As for the touristy area, yeah, it's pretty touristy. I saw a big shark head.
As we crest this bridge, we cross over into Louisiana. There's the welcome sign. Fourth state of the day, from being stuck in one state for 4 days to visiting 4 states in 1 day. Let's go.
Then, right before New Orleans was a bridge capable of competing with the Keys in terms of scale. I finally arrived in New Orleans, checked into my hostel, and yeah, nothing happened. When I planned this, I thought, you know what, maybe I will try to meet someone new and break out of my comfort zone. However, none of the guests were talking to each other, and I can't start a conversation. But would I let my crippling anxiety and simultaneous desire to not be alone ruin my time in New Orleans? I decided to go outside and even check out Bourbon Street. I immediately got overwhelmed and left. Trust me, I'm most disappointed of all to have squandered my time in New Orleans. Now, as I've said multiple times, this trip wasn't originally planned as a solo excursion, and there are some holdovers from that. Now, this whole experience was stepping out of my comfort zone, but some things were just a step too far, I guess. But maybe being on the road for 3 weeks and driving an average of 5 hours a day kind of drains a person, you know? This trip might look fun, but keep in mind you're seeing an edited version, and whatever time you have to travel, don't do this.
Well, I'm out of New Orleans. Driving through there, I did feel like I squandered my time. The hostel was nice, though. Very quiet, which I feel like is weird for a hostel. I don't know. I've never stayed in one before. But, like, my roommates, I guess you'd call them, pretty much didn't make any noise. We're going to Texas today. First time I've ever been in Texas, and, you know, hopefully I'll spend more time doing stuff there.
I decided to take a little stop in Baton Rouge.
So I'm at Louisiana's old state capital right now. I'm also going to try and check out the new one, and
This is a pretty cool Capitol building. Yeah, a cool castle style, which definitely sets it apart from other Capitol buildings. From what I understand, the original actually burnt down, and this is a reconstruction, but why don't they go with this style again? It's a cool vibe, and, you know, once again, would set it apart from other buildings, but we'll see the new one later. I was wondering why this gorilla figurine was in the case, and it's because Rodney Fertile ran for mayor of New Orleans with the promise of a gorilla for the zoo, which feels like a running for class president type strategy. Like, free Wi-Fi for everyone, you know? Also, just one gorilla? Wouldn't they be lonely? I know I've been in Louisiana for less than a day, but I think the most Louisiana food is jambalaya. Of course, I also had to see the modern capital, so I took a little saunter over.
well, there's the new one. They took a page out of North Dakota's book, or maybe North Dakota took a page out of their book, where it's like, oh, old Capitol burned down, build a big tower instead. Yeah, it'd be cool if you go up it. You might be able to. I don't know. I gotta get going. But I will say one last thing. This is probably the Capitol building most shaped like a penis.
In Texas now. Yeah, Texas. Now the largest state I haven't been to is New Mexico. 860. That's the other side of Texas, and I'll be driving that over the next few days. Can't wait.
So I had made plans to get dinner in Houston, and when I stopped in Baton Rouge, I had about 6 hours before the scheduled meeting time. It said it would take about 4 hours to get to Houston, so I had 2 hours to spare when I parked. I figured I'd check out Baton Rouge for about an hour and still have an hour to spare. When I got back in my car, an hour later, I had negative 30 minutes to spare. This is because there were traffic jams in Baton Rouge, Lake Charles, Beaumont, Houston, and Houston. My bad, I should have planned for over 2 hours of traffic to get added. Rookie mistake on my part. I met up with some people from the GeoGuessr community in Houston and had a conversation for the first time since New York. Houston was definitely a city I went to.
I got the long ass corridor because the elevator is next to my room again. What a beautiful Texas morning. We've got parking lot, highway, the Texas flag.
That day, I started with an establishment I had heard tale of and seen throughout the South. A chain known only by one word, Buc-ee's.
Just got out of Buc-ee's. Never have I seen an establishment that exemplifies the 7 deadly sins so well. I mean, greed and gluttony are self-explanatory, then pride, the way this beaver's face is stamped on every product and all across Texas. Sloth, because everyone in there is moving so slowly, except the employees, and that can be wrath-inducing, but also insulting Buc-ee's can invigorate wrath from Texans sometimes, which ties back into pride, and then envy because people are envious of Buc-ee's, I don't know, and then lust because beavers. You know what I mean. People want to fuck the beaver.
Okay, jokes aside, I get when people say it's not just a gas station because there's a chunk in there that feels like a Hobby Lobby. I don't see the hype though. Although apparently they pay their workers a living wage, so I can't hate on that. In Texas, I was feeling road tripping energy at such high levels. Levels I hadn't felt since the Midwest. Obviously, what I'm talking about is purely vibes and in my head, but what I think contributes is that outside of the big cities, there's some real distance between towns. Like, there is a distinct beginning and end to many of them, and you don't feel that as often on the East Coast. I'm a big fan of driving through the middle of nowhere, if you didn't already know. This billboard, though, was just confidently wrong. You don't know me. I'm getting a view right now. Speaking of billboards, as I was driving to San Antonio, I saw the most riveting advertisement for natural bridge caverns. My thought process here for going was, I haven't been to a cave on this trip, so I'll add it. The Natural Bridge Caverns had 2 tours available. I don't remember the name of the one that I went on, but I'll walk you through. I guess that's the Natural Bridge. Not a lot to say there. It was above one of the entrances, but that's not the tour I was going on. The cave I went in actually wasn't a naturally open cave. Someone just found it one day as they were drilling a well, I think? And they were like, hey, crazy theory. There might be a cave down here. And they drilled down, put a camera down there, and there was. The first chamber was pretty cool. Definitely one of the larger chambers I've seen in a cave. I love looking at all the different formations throughout. Then you walk through a small pathway and they told us to sit down. It's like, this is where they're going to turn off the lights because literally every cave tour does this. After that, you arrive at a large room called... Guess what it's called? If you've been on a cave tour, I swear that every cave tour calls their, most empty room this. It's the ballroom. I don't mean to sound jaded, I genuinely like looking at the formations. I mean, look at my stellar photography, but a lot of the information is pretty rinse and repeat. You know, you've been on one cave tour, you've kind of heard most of them. There's usually some different stories about how they found the cave. You know, all these caves kind of form the same, but they do create unique patterns in formations in the rock. Also, the tour was nearly over at this point, and we had only seen 3 rooms. However, something brand new to me was the light and sound show they had. On the side of the ballroom was this pocket where they rigged up a light show with accompanying music, and it was definitely the most unique part of the experience. Actually, I take it back. What came after might be the most unique thing I've seen in a cave. The tour guide kept talking about taking the bat out of the cave, which stands for Belt Assisted Transport. We had to watch a 2-minute safety video about the bat. Y'all, it's just a magic carpet. It's kind of neat, but they told us we couldn't film while riding, and the other people on the tour kind of seemed like narcs. Now I can finally get to San Antonio, and the parking garage had a spiral drive, so that was a real treat. I couldn't quite recall what I was going to see in San Antonio. There's something here that I'm supposed to remember. No. The Alamo. The second most famous attraction is the San Antonio Riverwalk, and yeah, it's definitely a very touristy trap place, but it's one of the nicer tourist trap places. At least there's some shade. However, once you get off the main stretch, it was a nice place for a little stroll. I went to the canal locks before turning around and then getting some truck tacos, and yeah, they're pretty good.
Look at the size of this. Oh god, there's stuff in my chin. This is the vibe I wanted.
Despite being alone, I wasn't having that bad of a time wandering around. I also found this pink dungeon area on the edge of the Riverwalk. San Antonio also has a tall tower with a viewing deck, and I decided that I would actually go in a tower for once because I love getting a view of the land and haven't been able to do that yet in an urban setting. The main reason I went up this tower specifically was mostly because it was half the cost of every other tall building with a viewing deck. So I timed it that I was able to catch the sunset from up above, and yeah, it was pretty nice, minus being maybe the most windy place on the trip. San Antonio doesn't really have an iconic skyline though, so there really isn't too much to see from up here. There's the stadium and some hotels, but really the only iconic building is the Alamo, and that's 2 stories tall. I don't want to sound too negative, it was still a neat time. This day was how I imagined the big loop would be in my head. I covered some ground, made an impromptu stop, saw a famous landmark, explored a new city, sampled the local cuisine, and saw a sunset from a good vantage point. I mean, I knew this wasn't going to be what every day was like, but the amount of days that had gone how I imagined they would was kind of shockingly low. Which could have been a good thing, but...
Alright, day 28. Today I'm going to be driving across West Texas. When playing this out, I was like, this is going to be one of those days that's just this is going to be hell. But now, after driving through so many cities and densely populated areas where even if you're not in a city, traffic's still quite a bit, I think it'll be nice to just have some nothingness.
Oh yeah, it's an 8-hour-long drive, not including stops. Buckle in for an edited recounting.
Today's just a long driving day, so I figured it's probably the best time to try Whataburger. My feelings about regional burger chains are they're all slightly better than nationwide burger chains. I think they're all overhyped. Will my opinion be changed on regional fast food burgers? No, and this one might be the worst one yet. I know I'm at Whataburger at 10:30 a.m., but it's what is everyone else doing here?
I was not expecting to be vibing with the scenery as much as I was. It was kind of a little taste of what it would be like to return to the mountains.
now that we're almost getting into the desert, temperatures are starting to heat up. I think I'll be fine. I think I can handle a temperature difference. Isn't that right, Hank Hill? Oh, that's right. You know, I don't get out to West Texas too often, so seeing how different it is from Arlen, it really makes you wonder how much beauty God put into one state. That's a good point, Hank. Texas does have quite a diverse landscape.
I don't think the heat was affecting me too much. Why do you say that? After about 4 hours, the initial excitement of driving through the middle of nowhere kind of wore off, and I was starting to feel it. When in the distance...
What do I see? A mountain off in the... Okay, it's gone.
Passed through Fort Stockton because they have a Roadrunner statue. Early in the trip, this would have been a real stop, but now I'm not even getting out of my car.
My goodness, can you see them? Can you see them in the distance? There's mountains. After weeks, there's finally mountains.
Storm clouds, you know what that means. I'm gonna try and see if I can get some lightning on camera. Place your bets now. Did I manage to get any lightning strikes on video? No.
Been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain.
Great idea. Walk up a little deserty hill when I've been near sea level for the past 3 weeks. Why am I hiking in the desert in 5 p.m.? This is why. Because mountains, and I've missed mountains so much. Oh, it's been so long.
No way. I'm finally back. Let's go. And everything is all right.
So after driving through a very empty portion of Texas, I was greeted by El Paso, which is fucking huge. At least relative to what the day's been so far, it's truly jarring to go from no towns of even like 10,000 people to a city of over 700,000. I mean, I guess I started in San Antonio, but like...
There is the state border, and that means New Mexico state number 30 has been entered. Last new state of the trip for me, and that means also now the largest state I've never been to is Kansas.
Even if I wanted to explore Las Cruces, it is coming down. I ain't going out a desert storm, are you kidding me?
Let's get going through the desert once again. Never mind, I forgot to get gas, gotta turn around.
It is day 29, which means that it's week 5. I've been doing this for 4 full weeks going into week 5, and today we're going to be crossing through New Mexico and then all the way across Arizona, so it's going to be a long day. Yesterday was like a little bit deserty, especially, you know, towards the end, getting into the desert, but today, it's all desert, baby. So you know what that means. Been through the desert on a horse with no name. What the fuck? What the hell is a U.S. Border Patrol inspection station?
Now, this is something I had heard of, but I was caught off guard in the moment by the military checkpoint. The only thing they did was ask me if I was the only one in the car. I said yeah, then they waved me through, and I have a strong hunch that the experience is not as easy for everyone else who passes through. I don't know how to return to the usual nonsense tone.
I think I have to stop for Desert Bot.
The home of Desert Bot was behind this facade of a fake Wild West town. We are so back. This is the kind of shit I'm used to. Just don't look them in the eyes. The inside was a store mostly filled with junk, there's no other way to describe it, with Desert Bot being tucked away in the back like a dirty secret. It's crazy that both big loop trips feature a giant statue that's supposed to be Bumblebee, but has a legally distinct name. I guess this one is pretty legally distinct looking too. That ain't Bumblebee, that's Stumbling Insect. I can't get over this billboard. New Mexico got one relevant thing in pop culture, and lucky for them, it's good. Soon after, I started seeing displays for The Thing. I've heard of The Thing before. No, not either of those. But if you haven't, oh, just you wait. In the meantime, there's nothing out here. Sure, there's some mountains in the distance, but things we're stopping for are few and far between.
No more bridge. Goodbye.
Saw some warnings for a dust storm, and there was one swirling in the distance, although I'm sure this is probably nothing in the grand scheme. It's just like driving through a snowstorm, but with tiny rocks instead of snow.
Arizona time! Well, due to the fact that Arizona doesn't use daylight saving, whatever, who fucking cares? They're always in Mountain Standard Time, but since it's daylight time right now, it's effectively Pacific time, so I spent basically one night in Mountain Time on this trip. Now, I don't know of any Arizona-specific foods, but like a fitting beverage. What if Arizona iced tea isn't even like from Arizona?
It's not. I passed through Bowie, which claimed to be the pistachio capital of Arizona, and I stopped at a jerky store.
Are they implying they have shark jerky?
They didn't, but it was here in the middle of the Arizona desert disaster struck. I'm kidding, I just need to put some oil in. I didn't take any, oh no, my car broke down videos in the moment, because I didn't need to try and do a fake out, but then actually get stranded in the Arizona desert. But I'll do a mini fake out now. While I was waiting, I did get some food from the food truck outside the jerky place.
Like, if these had good texture, maybe a 10 out of 10 fry. Or maybe I'm hallucinating in the desert. I don't know. Can you hallucinate flavor? So I think I like the desert in theory, you know, I really like the aesthetics, I like the big open space and the mountains, but I've spent most of my desert time in the high desert in spring, so actual desert in summer, I'm like, oh, that's right, it's the desert. But we continue. In the desert, you can't remember your name, because there ain't no one for to give you no pain. It's pretty hot out, right? Isn't that right? Hank Hill from the TV show King of the Hill. Oh, I remember there was a day like this in Arlen once. This heat reminds me of when the Megalomart exploded, and then I almost died. That's true, that did happen.
Remember a couple of minutes ago when I mentioned the thing? Well, I had finally arrived. Tucked away in the back of this thrift store in a gas station is one of the strangest attractions I have ever seen. Also, you have to pay to see it, which I didn't know. I'm not joking. If you think there's any chance of you visiting this and you don't want it spoiled, skip ahead. I think it will improve the experience. For those sticking around, the immediate first thing you're greeted by is an alien riding a dinosaur. So the basic premise is, what if aliens were around during the time of dinosaurs? What if what you were about to see is true? Yeah, man, what if? Also, there's secret jackalopes. I only found 2 out of 3. There's so much lore to the aliens and dinosaurs here. Basically, there's 2 clans of aliens, the Milzilrath and the Amatria. I'm not gonna use those names the whole time, don't worry. Basically, 1 clan good, 1 bad. There's so many steps we're skipping over. Like, okay, we know aliens visited dinosaurs, and obviously we know about the 2 clans and how they started a war and that they had technology to control dinosaurs. This is all obvious, but why did they start fighting? Okay, stop. We need to back up a bit. What on earth makes you think aliens visited dinosaurs in the first place? This is answered later and seeing some guy drew some circles and lines and some dinosaur bones. I paid $5 plus tax just to read fan fiction. The worst part is that the dinosaur models are pretty good.
There is no one in here. It is so empty. No one else wants to see the thing.
Oh, I almost forgot. Aliens found a separate species called cave dwellers that could have become humans. Also, basically all human wars were these 2 alien factions fighting each other. Then the what if questions get really mundane. What if this buggy was used by generals during the Civil War? That seems plausible. I don't know. I feel like you could answer that. What if you had to take this across the country on your next road trip? That'd be pretty rough, I guess. Also, aliens invented a nuclear bomb, I guess, and are implied to have done 9/11? Hey, did you remember that this attraction is called The Thing? Where's that at? So here's The Thing. The Thing is like a weird little fake mummy thing, for lack of a better word, and it's probably the least interesting thing about this place. Just one of those old school hoaxes where you just mix some bones up, call it an alien, and charge people to see it. Actually, maybe don't spend your money here. Perhaps my favorite section of text, though, is at the end where it says, what if the best way to hide the truth is in plain sight in an obscure roadside stop in Arizona? Which I can't tell if they're giving a wink and a nudge, because, yeah, obviously the secret to Earth is in the middle of a desert attached to a gas station. Which is probably true, actually, but not this gas station. Enough of that, though. I've got to move on to the next stop. Another national park, Saguaro. Cactus is probably one of my favorite plants. I don't know why. I guess I just like all the weird and funky shapes it can turn into. Also, being able to survive such extreme conditions is pretty neat. If you don't know, these big cacti are known as saguaros, and they can grow absolutely massive. They can also live for over 200 years old. In fact, it takes them about 50 years to sprout their first arm.
Now that's a saguaro.
This cactus garden just outside the visitor center was neat, but also one of the only trails that was recommended at the time since it was a balmy 110 degrees outside and getting hotter. This has completely shifted my perception of temperature. New heats were felt on that day.
It's time for a loop in a loop. We're going on the Bahada Loop Drive to see the Sus picnic area. I saw that marker on Google Maps and thought someone was being a troll, but no, that's real.
The Sus picnic area was just like a picnic area, but man, that would have done numbers in 2020.
So this is probably the hottest temperature I've ever experienced, and I'm about to go on a hike. Wouldn't it be funny if I came all this way and then died due to completely preventable reasons? All I had to do was just not get out of the car and go for a hike, but here I am.
It was about a fifth of a mile to get to these rocks, but it was maybe the longest time I've taken to cross that distance. But I got to see these petroglyphs, so that was neat. For those unaware, the word petroglyph refers to these carvings in the rock, and the word translates to stone writing. And it's not to be confused with pictographs, which would be painted onto the rock. My phone was honestly probably in worse shape than I was, though. Overall, saguaro was a pretty cool looking park. I would say it does feel kind of uniform since every hill is covered in saguaros, but saguaros are cool. Probably better to visit not during the summer though, but soon it's just always gonna be summer, so... The ego on this beaver, man.
Good to be out of the rain. Do you think we could listen to something else? Oh, I'm sorry, Hank. Do you not enjoy my music selection? No, it's a good song. It's just that, you know, maybe some variety would, help out. I don't think I like your attitude there, Hank. To be fair to Hank, we have been listening to the same song for quite a while now. Silence, Werner, be gone!
Okay, maybe the heat was getting to me a little bit. The last part of the drive, though, was a lot more empty, less nearby mountains to look at. The sun looked absolutely massive. Holy hell, I forgot about this. But after a long day of driving through the desert, I got to my hotel, which was once again right across from a Cracker Barrel. I swear I didn't plan this. That night I was staying in Yuma, which is right across from the California border, so first thing tomorrow would be entering another state.
Right up ahead, being covered up by the truck. Boom, California, Imperial County. Wait, California? I can't be in California. Oh God. Oh, whoa! Well, that's enough of that. Anyways, onward to the center of the universe. It's day 30, it's July. I've been doing this for about a month, and right now we're heading to the center of the world. Yes, actually. That's right, the center of the world is in Felicity, California.
So the center of the world is this monument in the middle of the desert in California. The official story is that's because of a kid's book named Ko the Magic Dragon, but really it's some rich guy's doomsday project from what I understand. Someone who I assume was a groundskeeper or similar position came up to me and told me about his boss, who he never referred to by any name, just as boss. This guy did tell me some interesting stuff about this place, like how the church was built on a hill because his boss's wife had a church on a hill in her hometown. Calling that a hill is alright. The actual official center of the world is in the middle of the pyramid, but you can only go in during tourist season, which is the winter, because it's around 113 degrees out here, so not too many visitors. The museum in Granite, as it's called, contains the history of Arizona, California, the US, the world, and other information about humanity that whoever created this thought was important, all carved into granite. I'm pretty sure the idea is that this monument will survive after humanity's downfall. The whole place does feel pretty post-apocalyptic, so good job, I guess. I didn't get as many photos and videos as I wanted since my phone almost immediately started to overheat, so off we go. Oh yeah, there's also a chunk of original stairs from the Eiffel Tower just sitting there, because I guess they didn't know where to put it. Now back to the desert.
I just need to get out of the desert, man. It's not fun anymore. Not even a horse without a name could save me. Ah, hell, what's one more time?
I should probably listen to a different song.
Been through the desert on a horse, its name is...
Right after driving through a chunk of desert that was below sea level, I rapidly started to gain elevation. This was maybe when I was most worried about the car on the trip. all along the side of the road were stations for overheating vehicles. Thankfully, I made it up fine and saw there was a lookout tower and thought, that sounds pretty neat. However, when I entered, the person behind the desk was passed out in a recliner, and I wasn't gonna wake them up. It feels rude to wake them when it feels like hell outside. Although it was about 20 degrees cooler up here, which is still in the 90s, but it makes a difference. Plus, I still got some nice views from the ground here. It is fascinating witnessing with my own eyes how much the habitat changes the further up you go. 5 minutes ago, the habitat was extremely deserty, but now resembled more of a Mediterranean scrubland. I had some time to kill before reaching San Diego, so I decided to take a detour through Cleveland National Forest. Driving in the mountains just felt right. It felt a bit like home, even though I was still so far away. Then it really started to feel like home once I went even higher in elevation. It's uncanny how much of this feels like some parts of Montana. I've reached this awesome lookout, and I love a place where you can see how far you've come. Like 30 minutes ago, I was in that desert.
This is what I've been waiting for. This is what it's all about.
Reiterating, I did drive all the way around the US to confirm, yeah, I like being in pine forested mountains. I even did a real proper hike for the first time in a while. Yeah, I don't know what that sound was. Merlin couldn't identify it as a bird, and I can't think of any other creature that'd make that noise, but it's probably fine. While at a brief glance, the forest resembled the Rockies, upon closer inspection, there were many plant species that were unfamiliar to me. This trail reached a bit of a viewpoint, and that's where I turned around. It's good for me to just wander into the woods alone sometimes. It really helps me reset my mental processes. In fact, I think I might need to go do that. Hummingbird. I was genuinely having such a good time driving down this road, experiencing the twists and turns, dips and rises. As I've said before, it feels like after not for a long time. California is a beautiful state. I also thought I saw a California condor, but it was just a turkey vulture. Especially later in the trip, it became so weird to think about where I was just a week ago and how much I had seen since. Like a week ago from this point, I was in a swamp and had since crossed most of the country, passing through coastal pine forests, bayous, hills, the desert, and was now in a fairly tall mountain range. At the moment, I was just going through it one step at a time, but when I zoomed out, it's kind of like, damn. I don't even have the words, but I've gone so far. And you know, while recording this, thinking back, I'm like, wow. That's crazy what I did. Then, passed through San Diego to get to my campsite. I was so stoked to be driving through a city again. I was camping north of the city, and it was actually decent camping weather for once. I could not sleep with the level of humidity in the south. End the day with a beautiful sunset and a good start to the final leg of the trip, heading up the Pacific coast. The fog has returned. Just down the road, this viewpoint was swarming with squirrels.
I will fight you. Get the fuck out of here.
The begging works though. A family was just scattering Cheetos for them.
So it's day 31. I'd say this is the final leg of the stretch as I go up the Pacific coast. Heading back down into San Diego, check that out. It's overcast right now, which after baking in the desert for the past few days, oh man, it's a welcome change.
I actually wasn't too sure what I was going to do in San Diego, but then I saw that basically all the museums and stuff were in one area called Balboa Park. Problem solved. Another easy victory for lack of planning. I started out with Air and Space, since it's a type of museum I hadn't been to yet, and missed out on the one in DC, and this one here is pretty cool. It starts out with some early stories and attempts of human flight, and then the first real exhibit is Da Vinci's sketches and studies of flight, as well as the contraptions he thought he could use to achieve it. One of Da Vinci's unique quirks was that he wrote characters in reverse, so you had to read his writing in a mirror. A personal anecdote of mine is that I did a project on him in 4th grade, and I wrote a bit of reverse writing, and when my friend used the mirror in the classroom to read it, the teacher got mad at him. Also, every Da Vinci exhibit needs to include the Mona Lisa, I guess, even if it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Then a big leap forward, since the next exhibit was about space. Shout out Ham the Space Chimp, who I thought died, but I guess not. Well, I mean, he died eventually, but not in the space thing. After doing some research, he only got a name after coming back down alive. They also have the landing capsule from the Apollo 9 mission, so that's pretty cool. Then the exhibits jump back to World War I, kind of all over the place chronologically. Also, this museum had some of the most uncanny mannequins ever. My favorite plane, in case you were wondering, was this lad. There was this control tower replica where you could sit in the chair and know what it's like to sit in a chair in a control tower, I guess. Also, the background consisted of a bunch of Egyptian-style paintings. I don't know what that's about. Then, of course, the last thing you see in the Air and Space Museum is a car. To be fair, it is an interesting car and applies a lot of principles of making aircraft. It's known as the Avion car and also has insanely good fuel economy, averaging over 100 miles per gallon. So of course it's never going to be mass-produced. Nearby is the Comic-Con Museum. I didn't go in, but I think it's fun to speculate what would be in there, because the first image my mind conjures is, here's the booth Stan Lee sat at one time. I assume it's probably more akin to like movie memorabilia, but I'm sure someone will correct me. The next museum I actually entered was the Mingei International Museum, which is an art museum featuring exhibits from various cultures all over the globe. In the lobby was an exhibit featuring art of armadillos from around the world. This is probably one of my favorite exhibits of the whole trip, honestly, and you didn't have to pay to see it. Upstairs, behind a paywall, was such exhilarating exhibits like Into the Spooniverse, which you can guess features spoons from all around the world. Now, I kind of like this approach because rather than having the spoons in their separate culture exhibits in different parts of the museum, you get them all congregated into one area, and you can really compare and contrast them against each other. Going in, I was thinking, alright, it's spoons, but there's some pretty crazy spoons out there, let me tell you. No, I haven't felt the touch of another human being in months, why do you ask? Another part featured high schoolers' artwork from the San Diego area, and I know they agreed to have their thoughts about the artwork made public, but still feels a little too personal. The next museum I checked out is called the Museum of Us, formerly known as the Museum of Man, but it took them over 20 years to change the name. I don't know how I would describe this museum since it covers a lot of topics, but I guess, it's a museum about humanity, or us. Woof. I mean, it's in the title. This museum had some vast tonal difference between the exhibits because one was like, humans love to make beer, check out all these beers from around the world, brought to you by Dogfish. Every one of these tags is a body tag from someone who died when crossing the border. Upstairs, there was an exhibit on secrets where people mailed in their secrets to Frank Warren as a part of a project called Post Secret. The first secrets you see are things like, I don't like coffee, but quickly get much heavier and more personal. There was a station that let you leave your own secret, and would you look at that? I bet this was at least one person's first time seeing a depiction of a penis. I knew it, different museum, same concept. There was a few more exhibits in the main building, but those are the ones that stood out to me the most. Lastly, across the plaza was an exhibit on cannibalism that was part of the museum. It was honestly not as interesting as I thought it would be. I think it would have been more fun with somebody else there. Because of the human-sized operation. What were you thinking? There was an Oregon Trail-style game with the Donner Party, but calling it a game is a bit of a stretch since anytime I tried to make a decision that would result in us not having to eat each other, the game said no, you're gonna eat each other. This board is interesting though because there's a lot of things that are kind of cannibalistic in a way. Like, I've never thought of a blood transfusion as cannibalism, but you are intaking another person. I feel like cannibalism has to at least involve the mouth. Next up, the Timken Art Museum, which was free, so I figured I'd check it out, and it's this kind of art museum. Alright, moving on, let's talk about the Botanical Building. It got plants. Balboa Park was cool, a lot of different stuff to check out. I only saw a fraction of it, but now I gotta get going to Los Angeles. Once I get through, so much traffic. For my time in LA, I'd be staying with my good friend BCFTR, whose car I definitely did not cause to explode. But of course, I appreciate BC and his roommate for letting me stay with him in LA. Since BC has a job, as is common for adults, I was left to my own devices for the day. So I went to the beach to just kinda exist, I guess. I tried setting up a shot here looking all contemplative and whatnot, but I didn't realize that there's somebody here, so...
So this is the first place on the trip I've seen sea grapes, and much like regular grapes, they're actually edible. Sailors used to eat them all the time.
I just kind of sat around looking at crabs and whatever these things were. I got nothing better to do, so I might as well walk into the ocean, man. Setting the phone up for this shot was scuffed as hell. It was in my shoe. That night we were planning on getting Korean barbecue and trying to invite a few people we knew in LA. The problem is the greater LA area is massive, so people can live in the region and still be hours away. When we were thinking of who to invite, BC said we should ask Nandre. He's a streamer, he knows who BC is, he doesn't know me though, so that's why it would be funny if I cold DM'd him. This is the message I sent. Do you want to Korean with me in BCFTR tomorrow? It was hours later when BC pointed out, hey, there might be something wrong with that sentence. Nandre never responded. Shocking, I know. If you see this, I'm sorry. I may regret this, but I invite anyone to DM me on any platform inviting me to Korean barbecue as long as you specify a time and place. Will I show up? Probably not, but maybe. There are certainly worse DMs to receive. At the dinner, we decided to try ox intestine. It looked more like penis than I was expecting. We also didn't know how to cook it, so we ate it before it was done, and it was extremely chewy. It tasted fine, but it was like chewing on a meat hose. The next day was the 4th, and we were just vibing.
What's up, guys? Today we found a French Lick Dental Association beach ball under my car.
That's yours now.
I don't really
Forever.
want it.
I thought it was gonna be plastic explosive.
It's just tape.
Does that represent one of each of their victims?
Yeah. America.
There's no way I'm gonna be able to do this, but whatever. It's just gonna. I hate this. There's no way I can get enough because it's too.
How big's your dilation?
This feels like this. I don't. Are you recording right now?
No.
Oh,
Of course not.
you are recording.
Give it your all.
See, that's the problem.
You have to keep it down. That's
I
the
have to like
thing.
drown it.
Yeah, you have to keep it down. Guys who don't know how to cut open a watermelon.
Melon time, or whatever the fuck I said, or we said last year.
Try to eat melon challenge.
Oh, did you hear that?
Was that your bones?
Yes.
Oh. I don't like how I can hear it.
That wasn't my bones. That
Yeah,
was the
I
watermelon.
heard it.
I was doing it.
I just softened it up for you.
You did.
This hurts.
That hurts.
It does hurt. It's a tough ass melon.
Am I doing good?
After resting for a couple days in LA, I was ready to get back on the. Are you kidding me? Funnily enough, the parking lot I pulled into to replenish the oil was having a car meet, I guess.
So since I decided to stay an extra day in LA, I now have to do a mega drive today. Thankfully, neither of the 2 days were going to be that long to begin with, but together it'll be a long day. Probably won't be the longest I've driven in a day, though. I think that'll still be the Florida day. They have Yoshinoya in the U.S.? So the original plan was trying to go along PCH as much as possible. I know part of it is like closed down, so I won't be able to take all of it, but I'm still gonna try and take a decent amount, even though it'll be a bit longer. Because like the other option is to use the I-5, and it's like I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through the Central Valley.
Maybe it was all the firework residue, but LA was feeling extra smoggy. Or maybe it's always like this, I don't know. I've been here like 4 times. Even though the amount of driving would be a slog, there'd at least be some cool scenery, dinosaurs. As I was saying, the scenery of the California coast really is something to behold. I was worried that I would end up losing a lot of time just because of how often I would want to stop. I did restrain myself from the sand for now though, as to not feel it between my toes the whole day. There was a sign forewarning the highway would be closed, so in an attempt to get around the traffic, I got off a couple exits before I had to, thinking perhaps this is how I'll sneak around the traffic. But I am another mere sheep in the flock, as every other person had this idea and was now clogging this road. So my next turn I went even more out of the way. God damn it. You can't outsmart traffic as long as you are the traffic. Put that in a fortune cookie. Back in the flow before leaving the coast and getting into some more shenanigans. The shenanigans are driving inland because there's a closure on the PCH that means you can't drive all the way through this chunk. So enjoy this scenery instead. Because something's genuinely wrong with me, I decided to check out Solvang because I thought that could be an interesting place to wander around for a bit, except I somehow forgot it was a holiday weekend, and that's Solvang's time to shine.
I don't know why I keep coming to these places. Like, I know I'm not gonna enjoy it. Like, yeah, it's neat. It's a town in California where the buildings are mostly Danish. But, kind of impossible to move through, so I don't know what I'm doing here.
Something from the day before kept rattling around in my head. The song Better Off Alone played repeatedly when we were at the pool, and for some reason that question genuinely stuck in my head. You ever have self-reflection come from the dumbest place? But being on the road again, by myself, I really had some time to chew on that, and the scenery in this part of California was so even that couldn't distract me. The whole time I had this feeling that this trip would have been more fun if someone else was here, and I did rearrange my trip for increased social time. Then again, considering every large trip I've attempted with someone else has gone horribly wrong, and this one hasn't yet, I'm leaning towards yes. That's the lesson I should pull from this trip. I am better off alone. Thanks for helping me realize that, Alice DJ. So this was about the point I would have stopped driving yesterday. I would have stayed near Monterey, so everything from here on out in the day is what I was originally planning to drive this day. I was stuck in traffic in Castroville, which is home to the world's largest artichoke. I talked about this last year with the Sugar Beet, but who else is going to make a giant artichoke statue? Feels like a very easy title to claim. Soon I'd be returning to the coast, so no more agricultural valleys. If I wanted to see crop fields, I could have just driven across the Midwest. The coast is back, and it's beautiful. Despite the fact that the moniker I've chosen to go by online is Ocean Man, I'm kind of glad I don't live near the ocean, because that way the ocean will still remain a bit more awe-inspiring than if I was always near it.
This is what I'm hoping to get out of the next few days. I can just like find a beach like this, park and be like, it's a cool beach. Take a quick little dip for half an hour, keep going.
The trip odometer reset and I didn't even notice.
That means I've gone over 10,000 miles just on this trip. With the clouds rolling in, I was less tempted to make stops further down, plus I still had quite a ways to go. Driving along the Pacific coast is a vibe though. Very bland thing to say, but it's true. I should still be more specific. It feels like when it's that first real warm day of spring, and you're able to roll the windows down finally and kind of feel a breeze. Well, at least when the sun's out here, which isn't too often actually, but I don't mind. I will start to mind though.
Like, oh, that's just the Bay Area.
The direction I came from, there wasn't too much urban sprawl. It was like coastal town vibe, and then boom, San Francisco. Now, I was not planning on stopping in San Francisco because I figured that at this point I'd be kind of sick of cities, and I was right. Thankfully, I would still be able to see the most famous landmark here without even leaving the car. Now, I've been kind of shitting on typical tourist places, but it's cool to drive across the Golden Gate Bridge. Since I came this far, I figured I might as well actually get out of the car and get a look at the bridge and overlook the city. Yeah, it was a worthwhile stop. Still a decent bit to go, though. Kind of forgot how much I was ranting about driving through California.
It's possible to have a relaxing drive in California.
However, right after was maybe one of my favorite sections of road to drive on in the trip. I've talked about it a lot already, but get ready to hear more about how I love driving down twists and turns. I didn't record a lot of the real crazy turns, and for my sake, that's probably a good thing. After sloshing my internal organs around, it was mostly a leisurely sunset drive.
I might be losing it a little, because I was like, driving through these coastal towns, I'm like, this reminds me of my trip to Maine. And I'm like, oh wait, that was this trip. I have not been home since I went to Maine. Oh my god. This is just my life. My brain is starting to remember this trip as older, different trips.
Once again, I'd be camping at this time at a place called Bodega Bay. When I woke up, I saw my campsite had a sign that said, "Do not occupy." I thought that was strange, since I had reserved it, but it was because my site was 23. Luckily, nobody was there, so... oops. I started that morning out with a quick walk on the beach.
Like, this is the beach vibe I'm about. Like, it kind of sucks. Like, it's cold and kind of dreary, but I don't know, it's a vibe. Because it's just like this.
I also noticed these little blue things washed up on the shore. Not quite jellyfish. I thought they might have been man-o-wars, since I don't know what those look like when they wash up. However, they're actually something called by-the-wind sailors, or velella, and are actually the same type of creatures as man-o-wars, neither of which are jellyfish, but are actually a hybrid colony of tiny organisms. So go and tell your friends that fun fact. Make sure to like and subscribe for more animal facts. I'm kidding. Due to budget cuts, there will be no more animal facts. Next stop had a ton of vultures just hanging around, not a carcass in sight, so why were they here? Well, I wish I could tell you, but once again the animal facts budget ran dry. Anyways, check out these cool rock formations.
The problem today is that there's going to be so many stops where I'm just like, ooh, that looks cool. I don't know, I'm doing a little hand thing. I'm losing it. But I'm on the Pacific coast, so...
Another cool spot I stopped at was this goat rock, which I considered climbing, but it was a no-go zone. Apparently around here there are some mammoth bones, but I couldn't find the actual trail to reach them since this trail felt far from official, but it had a good view at least. Doesn't really show up on camera, but oh well. Further up the road, the clouds started to part and it felt so good to feel the sun without feeling like I was trapped in an oven or the world's worst sauna. The way this hill rose above the clouds rolling in from the sea is just...
This might be my new favorite highway I've ever driven on. Granted, I mean, it has a lot of advantages since it's so long, but it's been a banger. It's like all bangers. You know? There's not like a boring stretch of the PCH. Yeah. This is why I saved it for last. I can't imagine being in like Ohio on the last week, you know?
I stopped by an obelisk because humans love obelisks. Guess what? It's time for yet another separate beach, but this one has a crab. At this point in the trip, thankfully I had planned less time for driving each day since I knew I'd be spending so much time at stops, whether those stops be for cool nature or other things.
Absolute unit of a sign. What the fuck?
I pulled over to get a picture in front of a different sign, and this other guy who was also pulled over would not stop staring at me. Like, I'm sorry, is it a crime now to take a photo in front of a comically large road sign? Turns out giant signs are kind of everywhere in California, but it was a novelty to me for at least a little bit. You see, driving through California is really fun, until you have to pay for something, and you don't have a Californian salary. So please like and subscribe to help pay off a bag of chips I bought. Once again, the road started to veer away from the coast, but instead of agricultural valleys full of artichokes and garlic maybe, there was instead a thick pine forest as I was approaching peak redwood territory.
I have died driving in this forest. I don't know how to explain it, but just a feeling.
Listen, I know I sound like a broken record, but I love driving on winding mountain roads. In the forest, there was claim of a tree large enough for a car to drive through. Seemed like enough of a novelty to make a quick detour, so off I went down the forest path to say I had driven through a tree. Yeah, that was it. Very disappointing experience. Apparently there's quite a few trees you can drive through sprinkled throughout California. This one specifically is known as the chandelier tree. There is a reason they stopped doing this though, since even though the tree is still alive, it has what you might call a massive compromise to structural integrity, and many trees that this happened to collapse. So they stopped making new tree holes, and now there's a few that remain. This tree also had a pond and some trails nearby. Just one redwood wasn't enough though, as I'd be traveling along the Avenue of Giants, a scenic highway intertwined with the main highways, passing right through the redwood forest, and it's truly awe-inspiring.
An insane angle. Like, trees. I don't have anything to say, dude. These are massive. Like, they're crazy looking. It's one of those things. Like, this is one of those things where it's like, oh, seeing them in real life is like, some things you see in real life, and you're like, I could have just looked at a picture, but these, it's like, wow. Seeing them in real life really elevates the experience.
To summarize what I was saying in the moment, the scale of these trees is very impressive, and merely seeing them represented in a visual medium, such as a photograph, doesn't capture their size as much as occupying the same space as them. Now, as cool as the redwood forest is, after a certain point, it's like, you get the idea. There isn't too much more I can add about them. There's also this corn on the side of the road, which is a memorial. I guess it got me to stop and see, because I wouldn't have if it was just like a stone. The rest of the drive until I got to my campsite wasn't too interesting. When I got to Summit Campground, it was the optimal time and place for a sunset picture. I mean, so much of the Pacific Coast is. The state park ranger got mad at me because day use ends at sunset, which is crazy when this is such a primo sunset spot. I'm also just not used to state park rangers doing their jobs, or even existing.
For this year's Try to Eat Melon challenge, I brought this part of a watermelon with, and I have a knife, but it's not like I don't have like a cutting knife, I have a pocket knife, and like, I don't really have a way to store this if I cut it up, because I can't eat all this by myself. But I don't even think it's been 20 minutes later. Yes, this is the same night I've just been sitting in my car eating eating watermelon. There's something about a dark forest at night that makes you want to just eat a watermelon.
This was my favorite spot to camp on the trip, and there was some tough competition. First stop of the day was Redwood National Park. In my experience, a lot of the maps list Redwood National and State Parks as one entity, so I didn't quite know the national park's boundaries, but thankfully I was able to get a map so I could see that's actually kind of small. As per usual, I started out with the Visitor Center, which is located close to the coast. Saw a little snake here, pretty neat. Then I went into the forest to hike on some more trails. Of course, the main focus here are the massive trees, but it's also cool to look at the little things. I don't know how to say it without sounding cheesy, but there's some cool flowers around here.
So I'm on like the main road in Redwood National Park, and just kind of keeps going. I don't think I've been in a national park before where the main road just kind of goes off into nowhere. Like, no signs. Maybe there'll be a sign, I don't know. So let's just see where I end up. Well, I truly have no idea where this road goes, so...
After going down this winding mountain road and seeing pretty much zero infrastructure, the first sign I saw of civilization was a cemetery.
So this day had the least scheduled amount of driving, emphasis on the had. It might still, but I think I just added like 2 hours of driving, just messing around. So back to the main road I go.
Yeah, I definitely added more than 2 hours of driving overall since I had to loop back around to where I started. Well, I guess I could backtrack up and down the mountain, but seemed like a bit more of a hassle, plus I could see a new road now. So enjoy this truck that never turned its blinkers off. Hey, that looks familiar. At 3 p.m., I finally started making forward progress. Hey, that sounds familiar. Making some progress, and then immediately getting distracted by a sign that says Klamath River Overlook. I felt like 7-year-old me on September 20th, 2008, seeing that Speed Racer was available at our local video rental place because I gotta check this out. That was too long a setup, but checking it out was worth it.
Places like this are like truly saving the best for last. Like, I'm so glad because I was considering going counterclockwise, so it'd be like, oh, it'd be slightly different than last year, but I'm like, nah, I gotta save the West Coast for last because, you know, I keep saying it, but it's true.
A few moments later.
Fuck this trail isn't real. Oh, guess what? I fucking tripped because there was ground. Fuck, was it showing? Whatever, I tripped, there was ground. I thought there was ground. There wasn't ground. I ate shit and fell. I'm so done. I am on the verge of fucking going insane every moment of every day. But the only thing keeping me sane is the fact I'm in like one of the most beautiful parts of the country, you know? Ah!
Tripping and skidding my knee during a moment of optimism? Hey, that feels familiar. Genuinely though, this trail sucked. There was so much grass and other various plants in the way, and it's such a narrow path. So thank fuck there weren't ticks. Because this was like a tick heaven. Mystery of the Trees was up next, and I was thinking, I don't know, I've seen a lot of redwoods these past few days, but apparently this place had a gondola that went through them, and that sounded like a cool experience, but they were closed when I got there at like 4:30. Well, the tour was closed, but the gift shop was open, of course, and they had a very uncanny Paul Bunyan statue. It kind of gives me the vibe that someone tried to bring a Bob's Burgers character to life, but they're also 20 feet tall. Unsurprisingly, I didn't feel like stopping too much after wounding my knee, but being able to sit while driving and admiring the scenery helped me relax a little.
Well, now I'm approaching Oregon. I guess that concludes this part. Am I gonna dedicate one part to one state? Yeah, pretty much. Oh, there it is. There it is, a large welcome sign. And now we have entered Oregon, thus ending the longest stretch in a state. And it immediately is more foggy. Well, this is it. This is the final stretch.
We're in Oregon. The westernmost point is coming up. Just a few states left to go. A few days. I don't know, it's gonna be weird. It's weird that this is almost over. Like, the days have just been getting quicker and quicker and quicker. And yeah, I don't know. I think it'll take some time getting used to being in one spot again. So it's been a long run. Thanks for sticking along and watching. I appreciate all the support. First impressions, I've never been to this part of Oregon, and yeah, it exists.
I love the nature of the Oregon coast, but the towns, you know, it's just like towns in America. There's some cool ones, some not cool ones. However, the overcast and fog do really contribute to a dreary atmosphere. Soon, though, I would enter a stretch of scenic highway and be reminded why I love the Oregon coast. How many times did I put Oregon coast in the script?
My mood right now is so funny because it's like I'm in a bad mood. My leg really hurts. I think I fell into like an itching plant because my left arm is like tingles now. But I mean, like, all I have to do is just stop and look at this. I've said it before, but thank God I'm not going the other way around, because otherwise I would be having a mental breakdown in Cleveland right now. Beautiful.
Now, I did clean up my wound, but since it was right on the knee, I couldn't bend it without at least a little bit of pain. But you think a flesh wound's gonna stop me?
I'm gonna keep just stopping at all the viewpoints. What else am I gonna do? I'm very hungry. I need to eat like a real meal. I haven't had a real meal in days. Was the last time I had like a balanced meal Korean barbecue? Maybe. Another scenic outlook in half a mile.
I think what really sucks is like each beach, it's like I could spend a full day here and be like just vibing, but you know, it's like, oh, cool beach, gotta get going. Got so much more to see.
The next one was called Natural Bridge, so of course I had to see that. It may be the most impressive natural bridge I've seen. If you don't know, natural bridge is a generic term used to describe when water flows beneath a rock, creating, say it with me now, a natural bridge. So there's not a ton of them, but they can be found scattered throughout the world. Surely I'd have to stop after this one.
That sounds really cool looking.
If you didn't catch it, that sign said Arch Rock. Honestly, the Arch Rock wasn't even the coolest formation at this stop. I was fucking with this one over here more. The Loaf Rock, I guess? I don't know. It didn't get a name because having a hole is more important.
Nature stopped my viewpoint streak for me.
Just kidding, I'm still stopping at this massive rock. Continuing on through the fog, there was a dinosaur place. It was closed. The fog is coming. Here we can see our first of many Oregon green bridges. Yeah, it's just like rusted copper green, but there's something about it specifically that I associate with Oregon, like the exact tone. At this point, I didn't have any more stops for the night, as it was getting pretty dark and the fog was coming in pretty thick. So I decided to get some food and head to my campsite. However, the last town I passed through, Coos Bay, North Bend, has like maybe the highest energy of like sleepy town with a supernatural mystery I've ever driven through. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's derogatory or not. Well, time to pitch my tent in the dark once again. Another foggy morning. You love to see it. Perfect weather for a sweatshirt and shorts.
All right, it's day 30 something, like 6. I don't know. I've been looking at a lot of big rocks. Let's go look at the small rocks. Check out the dunes. Lots of little rocks. I'm losing it.
I'm starting off with a hike to some dunes. I planned little driving this day because I knew I'd be stopping a lot just for random places, and this is the first one. The dunes were a bit of a pain in the ass to climb, but it's still easier in deep snow, and the view is definitely worth it. The expanse of dunes is just so, I mean, I'll let past me speak.
Like, this is genuinely so cool. Like, it's such a cool area. It's just like a little, there's so many dunes, and they're like actual dunes. I don't know what to say anymore. This is amazing. Like, I keep thinking, man, I should be done. I'm so tired, but then I see this and I'm like, let's keep going. If you learn anything from this video, it's that the title of national park doesn't mean shit.
At least in terms of natural beauty. In terms of protections and regulation is where the stats helps, I think. But I would definitely say, in terms of beauty, national park is an arbitrary category because there's beauty all around the US if you know where to look, and you know, it's in the eye of the beholder, so it's all subjective anyway.
I'd roll down, but like, you know, wound.
Not as much sand as I thought when I emptied out my shoes. Continued to drive for a little bit, then the sun came out and the mood was good. Oh, the sun is gone already. When I was driving through this forest, I saw a sign for Crater Lake, which is strange because I was pretty sure it was deeper in the mountains. I took the turn and ended up here, which is super weird because, you know, I thought there was an island and it was a bit bigger. What's going on? Oh, I see, it's Carter Lake, not Crater Lake. Gosh, I can be so silly. Now, because I know how the internet works, it was a joke. I know that Crater Lake isn't near the coast. I thought it was funny that there's a lake in Oregon that has a similar name that at a brief glance could look like a more famous lake in Oregon. Unironically, I think if someone joke policed any of my jokes, that's the one I'd be most upset about. You can call me a loser, but how dare you suggest I don't know the location of Crater Lake, Oregon? This is too long of a tangent for the Iowan city, pretty much in Nebraska.
After driving past a turn to Eugene, I was thinking like, oh, you know, I'm back in a road I've been on before, and I was like, wow, I haven't experienced that, since DC? But I was like, wait a minute, no, I visited BC and LA before. Like, I'm back into like childhood road trip territory though, you know? Where it's like Oregon, Iowa, and Colorado were like the 3 road trips I did a lot as a kid.
Just north of Florence, I stopped at a carnivorous plant bog with these plants known as cobra lilies, which wait for bugs to crawl under their hood before consuming them. Also known as Darlingtonia, they can only be found in a select few places in southern Oregon and North California. No, butterfly, watch out! You shouldn't be there! No! Oh, it's fine, they're just landing on top. Pretty neat quick little stop there. Then I doubled back because I passed by something I wanted to see, Exploding Whale Memorial Park in Florence. For a whale that presumably exploded, it looks way too happy.
So I came to Exploding Whale Memorial Park, mostly because silly name, Exploding Whale Memorial. Why is this kind of cool? What?
So the exploding whale in question washed up on shore in the 70s. Now I thought the exploding part of this whale was in reference to how corpses blowed up and then just kind of go poof. But no, they put some explosives under it and fucking obliterated it. Next stop just down the road was the Sea Lion Caves, which if you've been watching from the beginning may sound familiar. Sea Lion Caves in Oregon. In the parking lot I thought there might be a secret cave, but it's barely a cranny. Not even a crevice, really. Sea lion caves are pretty self-explanatory. They're caves with sea lions inhabiting them. I'd visited them a few times as a child, and they were how I remember. Many places from my childhood I've revisited as an adult and had the nostalgic shimmer stripped from them. My fond memories are overwritten by the flaws I see as an adult. Less often I get newfound appreciation for places, but the sea lion caves are about the same. I remember thinking, that was kinda neat as a child, and about 13 years later I thought, that's kinda neat. You can also see them outside. It's a cool place, I guess. You know, you're guaranteed to see some wild sea lions. One last note, those rocks aren't white naturally.
So I thought I'd have a moment in the Sea Lion Caves where I was like, wow, you know, I saw this mural for them back in Minnesota and just think about how much time has passed. But the amount of screaming children really kind of takes you out of the moment. I did get this though. I saw it and I was like, the little guy levels are off the chart. He's just a little guy. He needs a name. Got chat, what do we name this banana slug? I'm very rarely like an impulse buyer, but like this, that's not true. I'm rarely an impulse buyer for like physical objects, but this, I needed them.
Of course, I stopped at another random spot.
Tide pool time. This spot looks like it'd have good tide pools, so hopefully it does. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, even if there is something lurking in there, good luck.
All I could find at first was this dead crab. Soon, I realized I needed to zoom out. It took me way too long to realize there was a full seal colony on those rocks over there. I've grown up near bison, and I always kind of wanted to know the feeling of seeing one in wild for the first time, and I think this is the closest I've gotten. Then I turned the camera around to see what face I was making. It's very hard to be in genuine awe on camera, at least for me, I feel. I started to see other stuff too, starfish, crab. Sometimes you just need some patience. This was a cooler experience than the Sea Lion Caves, to just stumble upon some seals. It did feel more majestic and less fatty, since a 12-year-old wasn't beating it with saltwater taffy every 5 fucking seconds. Okay, there weren't kids throwing candy at the sea lion caves. That's just a reference for like 2 of you, but there were kids running around and yelling, which is fair because sea lions are cool. However, it's nice to be able to sit and listen to the ocean for a sec. As cool as this was, I gotta move on.
So I'm passing through Newport right now. I don't know, it's kind of crazy being back here because this was like the beach town we always went to when I went through Oregon as a kid. And it's been almost 9 years since the last time I was here. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, wild after, you know, this massive trip, seeing so many new places. And then it's just like, oh yeah. I don't know why it was the town we always came to. I think because of the aquarium. It's a nice aquarium, but I won't be visiting there today. I've been coming here since I was like 2. And I'm back. Spice, adult video. Wait, this morning I was thinking, you know, what references could I make to the first part of the trip? And I was like, oh, I could, you know, because like the first thing I saw was like, oh, the cowboy on the bomb. I'm like, yeah, but like, how am I ever gonna see a Doc Strangelove reference out in the wild? And I saw one in Newport, and it, like, I saw one on like one of the electronic like sign things that was like, watch our performance of Doc Strangelove. I'm like, holy crap, like out in the wild, that's insane. And then I tried to go back to get like a video or something of it, and the screen changed and it just never changed back to that. I swear it was there. I'll put a screenshot up of like to show that yeah, they're gonna do it, but like I could not get a thing in the wild. But I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy that there's a Doc Strangelove performance out here.
I actually parked at the Chamber of Commerce for like 15 minutes, but it never cycled back. I also drove over to theater to see if they had an advertisement, but I was starting to feel crazy, so I moved on. But they were playing it. Look at the website. My next stop in the town of Lincoln City is the D River.
So there's a bit of a debate when it comes to the shortest river in the U.S. It's the Roe River, but the D River in Oregon also tries to claim that title. So I was like, you know what? I'll check it out, see what it looks like. It's definitely longer. I don't know what they're fucking talking about, because it's like, you know, it says, oh, you know, if you measure, depending on when you measure at the tide, but it's like, looking at all of it, it's like, you include all of this, it's definitely longer. I don't know what. Unless you're like, unless it's like, oh, well, actually, this part is part of Devil's Lake, and it's like, it's longer.
The next part I blasted through since I was trying to reach a certain establishment before they closed. I'm drifting from the coast a little bit, but you can see it has a bit of a different vibe here. A little bit more farmland, and the fog hasn't drifted over here yet. Then I passed by another Oregon memory.
There's the Burger King where I ate 2 hamburgers in 3 bites.
Where was I in such a rush to get to? Well, Pronto Pup, of course. This restaurant in Rockaway Beach claims to be the inventor of the corn dog. Although, of course, there are differing accounts. In addition to the giant corn dog on top, there's also a corn dog that you can ride outside. I didn't, though. It would seem sad to ride it by myself.
You might be wondering, dang, is it that good? I mean, it's the best corn dog I've ever had, which, you know, isn't that high a bar to clear, but very good. And it's something I was in the mood for. Just something with a lot of calories. They also have a pickle, which I did try last year, but, you know, I thought I'd eat it again, even though I didn't like it for content, because it's truly something. I took a bite off the top to see that it was the pickle. Look at this thing, dude. Yeah, so the problem is that, like, the batter and the pickle are two, like, distinct. Like, you bite through the batter, and then you get to the pickle, and you have to apply more force, and it's very unpleasant, but... and then you're just eating a hot, greasy pickle. If you'd like to eat...
Then, one more stop before reaching my campground, the Tillamook Cheese Factory. It's kind of fucked up that they whisk the cows up to make the cheese. Yeah, it's a factory where they make cheese, and you can watch them do it. They even have free samples, which were definitely on toothpicks last time I came through. Individually wrapped cheese is probably better for slowing the spread of disease. It doesn't feel the same, but that's not my area of expertise. I should mention to enter you don't have to pay any fees, although the layout all but guarantees you'll be spending your currencies on as much cheese as you can seize in order to appease your hunger. Something you might freeze for later. Say we're Japanese bees on the Board of Trustees. Rhyme zone, help me! Lockheed C-130 Hercules? Jeez Louise. Funnily enough, there's another cheese factory in Tillamook called Blue Heron, but it's nowhere near as big. Like, yeah, of course everyone's gonna go to the one named after the city. Can you imagine going to a different chocolate factory in Hershey, Pennsylvania? Oh, to be a cow in a scenic dairy farm near the Oregon coast. I really hope their lives aren't awful. So, fun fact about my campsite, I've actually camped super close by before, just on the other side of that outcropping. I didn't even realize that when I picked out this spot, I only realized when I got there. Another trip from the Oregon coast to reminisce about. Camping on the sand, wading into the ocean at 6 a.m., and the jellyfish fights. Speaking of which, this is the most intact jellyfish I've ever seen washed up. It's good to see some traditions still carry on, like crab carcass castles. The Oregon coast is a place I've enjoyed at every age. While some places I thought were boring as hell as a child, I've grown to appreciate as an adult. As mentioned earlier, many places were clouded by nostalgia and felt worse as an adult. But Oregon I like every time. I don't think I could live here though. The constant overcast would get to me. Whenever I visit Oregon, I'm always excited to come back, and it's like, I'm here now. Why can't I enjoy it now? Why am I looking forward to the next time? That's weird. Take a drink every time I say Oregon coast in this video. On day 38, I woke up to the closest experience I'll get to Jurassic Park. Well, I can think of a way to get closer, but I'd rather not. Last night, I backtracked a bit south from Rockaway Beach to get to my campground, so I got to encounter brand new road construction that wasn't there the night before. Today I'd be stopping into town again, this time to actually see their town's beach formation, the Twin Rocks Arch.
It is kind of nice that beach towns don't get started till like 10, maybe. Like it's 9 a.m. There's like 5 people around, you know? It's also windy as shit, but Oregon.
I'd like to imagine I'd start every morning with a beach walk if I lived by one, but I know the novelty would wear off after like a week. The Twin Rocks Arch is neat though. I tried getting some cool shots near the water level, but since my camera isn't waterproof, I couldn't commit to the bit.
I got salt in my wound.
Onwards to one of my favorite rock formations on the Oregon coast.
Would you believe me if I told you that driving barefoot is kind of disorienting? I'm driving barefoot because I'm like, well, I'm just gonna keep getting out and going to beaches all day, so what's even the bother of cleaning my feet off at all, you know? I feel like I have to push a little bit more, just because I'm used to that, you know, there being a shoe in the way.
The town of Cannon Beach is home to Haystack Rock, which doesn't really have any fancy formations, but its size alone is quite impressive. I stopped here last year and felt drawn by its magnetic presence, so I was a bit surprised to see the parking lot mostly empty, since last year it was rather packed. From this lot though, it's about a half-mile walk to the rock. Just saw a bald eagle. Crab on the beach. I think it's dead though. A lot of dead things. Turns out it's easier to get pictures of dead things since they stay still. Sometimes. I think my favorite part of Haystack Rock is its reflection in the water. I love freezing my legs off to get these kind of shots. At the base of the rock there's tide pools, but there's barricades farther from the rock than there were last year. I should probably stop talking about my experience last year and focus on this year, but what can I say? The Oregon coast has been a trip down memory lane. Anyways, here's some things I saw in and around the tide pools. Are these from this year or last year? You'll never know. I'm being so genuine. I love this place. I can't quite place the reason, but maybe that's the reason in and of itself. I love the vibe of the Oregon coast in general.
The hell is this place?
This is Seaside, which feels like the biggest anomaly on the Oregon coast.
Seaside as a town is so funny to me because it's like the only town on the Oregon coast I've seen that's like fully trying to be like beachy, touristy, trappy, like, you know, like, oh, let's have fun, all this tourist trap stuff, but like, you don't go to Oregon to have fun on the beach. The beach is gloomy as hell here, you know? Like, this is the best weather I've seen, and like, look at this. It's very rarely sunny. What are we doing? This isn't the Oregon coast vibe.
That isn't to say there aren't tourist trap attractions, there certainly are, but it's the town most committed to the bit. It's the only place on the Oregon coast I've seen that has one of those t-shirt stores. You know the ones. Maybe it's the giant 7-story hotel that's throwing me off, because I feel like there's not anything else like that building on the Oregon coast. Could be misremembering though. Nearing the end of my time in Oregon, I decided to stop in a town I'd only passed through before. Astoria, located at the northwest corner of Oregon. At the top of the hill was the Astoria Column, which yes, you can climb up. Great idea, climb up 1,000 steps with an injured knee. I'm sure that'll be good for it. The view is pretty cool from up here though. Then I also decided to check out the Oregon Film Museum, which was located in the Old County Jail, which sounds cool in theory, but is very cramped in practice. Did you know The Goonies was filmed in Astoria? Because Astoria really wants you to know. They really went all in on the Goonies, though. Surely there's at least one other movie filmed in Astoria. Okay, I see why they'll go with the Goonies. Just across the street is the Goonies house, so I don't really care, because I've never seen the Goonies. First town I've been to that felt like it had required viewing before visiting. After that, I figured I had to get moving, and it was time to depart Oregon.
As we cross this bridge, the final boss of Oregon Green Bridges, at some point, hold on. Is it after the Green Bridge part? Well, I guess that makes sense. The Green Bridge feels very Oregon to me. We will soon be entering Washington.
This bridge is actually super fucking long.
Okay, there's another section of bridge here, but this feels like a slightly different color. Oh, there we go. Entering Washington. Dang. I thought it was somewhere. It's right there, I guess. I guess most of the Columbia River of that section is part of Oregon, but now we're finally in Washington for real. Let's go. Dismal Niche. All right.
There weren't as many stops from here on out since I was mostly driving through the forest, and the places to stop would be pretty deep in the woods. However, I stopped at the world's largest oyster. When was the last time I stopped at something claiming to be the world's largest blank? This might be the most disappointing world's largest thing, and I've seen the world's largest sugar beet. Aberdeen is where Nirvana is from. Is there another fun fact about this town? You tell me. Within the dense forest of the Olympic Peninsula is the world's largest Sitka spruce. A total drought of large things and 2 in one day. What are the odds? This certainly is a massive tree. When you say it's the world's largest, I'll just have to take your word for it, since there could be a larger one far from the clutches of civilization, but also, after redwoods, it's like, is this as impressive? I mean, yeah, while the trees here might not be the absolute tallest, they are still gigantic. And the forest had a completely different atmosphere than the redwoods. It felt like thicker and denser. In fact, this part of Washington is actually a rainforest. In fact, most of the Pacific coast is considered a temperate rainforest, but for the Olympic Peninsula, it really rang true. As I continued north, the road grazed the coast once again, and the clouds parted, allowing for the sun to shine through. I felt so serene in that moment, somewhat nervous for the next day, as I was about to finally complete my goal and soon head home. What I spent over a month doing was about to end, so it's only fitting that I had to stop for construction 7 times. That night, I stayed in Forks, Washington, and rested up, as tomorrow I would finally tackle the westernmost point.
Today is a big day. Maybe even the biggest day of the trip. It's day 39. Yeah. And today, we'll finally be visiting the westernmost point of the contiguous U.S. I should say contiguous because it's not the lower 48 technically, because there are some islands in Washington that are a little bit further west, but you can't really get to those easily, so westernmost point of the contiguous U.S. This is the climax, not Minnesota, of the trip. And it's crazy, you know, it's already here. The time just, you know, time's a weird thing. You know, it's, yeah, it's already here. Later today there'll be an appearance from a special guest, so, oh shit. Yeah, that about sums things up. Let's go.
I felt pretty nervous on the drive to the westernmost point. I'm not quite sure why. The weather was mild and it was a simple drive and hike. I guess months, and when you look back at it, years of anticipation had started to build, and soon would be the moment.
There it is.
The Ozette Ranger Station is where I'd be starting the hike from.
Yep. There it is. Cape Alava Trail. I actually don't know how you pronounce it. This is it, the trail to the westernmost point of the contiguous U.S. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of nervous because it's just like, it's a 3-mile hike, you know, low elevation, decent gradient. It's temperate weather. You know, there's no, I mean, I'm sure there's some mosquitoes, but like, I don't know. It's weird. Kind of nervous. It's just, yeah, it's surreal. This is the surreal moment of like, wow, I'm here. After a drive to the middle of nowhere, I gotta walk through the middle of nowhere. It's the only, like, point without a... I don't even think there's a marker there.
The hike is a little over 3 miles and crosses fairly even terrain, but it's kind of slippery at times. My head was filled with so many thoughts, but at the same time, I didn't know how to express them. The culmination over a month's worth of driving and years of planning is hard to summarize.
It's kind of funny. I've seen a few other people, passed by a few other people on the trail. I've been, like, the only person without a backpack. I don't know, man. I don't know what to say. Ferns.
With the journey being near its climax, surely I was having deep thoughts.
I remember this guy, and I don't know, what, Calculus 2 or whatever I was taking. We were talking about, like, asymptotic functions. And then he was like, my mom's cousin died like that. And we're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, whatever it's called, autoerotic asphyxiation. And we're like, what? And he's like, yeah, I'm not joking.
If I hadn't stumbled right there, I probably wouldn't have seen this.
I'm hyped. I saw a banana slug. I've been looking for them, but only when I stopped looking for them did I find them. Is it clear that I don't think I've gotten a full 8 hours of sleep in weeks?
I was pretty much there. On that beach is the westernmost point.
This is it. The westernmost point of the contiguous US. Like I said, probably depends on the tide, but close enough. Ignore the fact that there's islands right there that are more western. This is the westernmost part of the mainland. And that's good enough for me. And I think it should be good enough for you too. But I've done it. I visited the north, east, south, and westernmost points of the contiguous US. I mean, I guess I didn't, fuck it, whatever. Good enough. Good enough on all of them. None of them actually are the true extreme points where the markers are. There's no marker here even, so. I did it. I don't know what else to say. I feel like some people are going to be like, wow, you finally completed it, and you're just like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Should I be more like, yeah, I did it. Would you prefer that? My excitement is inside, and that's what's important. No, but really, I am excited. Or, I don't know, I'm content, I guess. It's like, yeah, I did it. This crow will not shut the fuck up. I don't know, maybe I was hoping for some sun. Since there was some sun yesterday, so it could have happened. But yeah, it's just, the weather's overcast, so it's just kind of like, yeah, it's a vibe. I don't know, yeah. I'm just feeling content right now, I guess. I'm not super, like, wow. I don't know. Like, who am I going to share it with? Those people over there?
I tried just closing my eyes and seeing if that helps show my mood. I feel like, at least for me, it's hard to be genuine while staring directly at a camera. I decided to just sit for a while, because I felt like between getting out of bed and getting into bed, I had few moments where I just sat with myself, no driving, no walking, just sitting and watching. So I sat there to observe the crabs and reflect. Many times I feel like I've been judged for having the wrong or insufficient reaction to something. I felt like I should have been more excited, but I did feel like a genuine sense of accomplishment. But I feel like accomplishment isn't a very outward emotion, or at least how I express it. Because the truth is, it wasn't exciting. It was rewarding, yes, but exciting... The sky was gray and the wind was whipping about, and it felt like just another rocky beach in the PNW. It was pleasant, but wasn't one of the most impressive things I had seen. I was more outwardly excited to see a banana slug, and I feel like that's because there's an element of randomness there. But the Cape is the place I've been preparing to get to for so long, so it's expected. I also feel like I got more out of spontaneous stops or stops I had done little research on. Oftentimes my mental state was being exaggerated for dramatic effect, but those feelings were based in reality. Of course, last year this was supposed to be a 2-person trip, and I've talked about before on the series how I've been better with an accomplice, although this would have been testing of any friendship. However, it did feel kind of hollow to do this by myself. Some of my favorite parts of the trip were visiting friends, even if the activities were more ordinary. So, I do wish I met up with more people on the trip. Can't be lingering on the past for too long, though.
The story isn't over yet. I still gotta get home.
Saw another slug on the way back. What if I made a dating profile and it was just these 4 photos? I'm kidding. Anyone who saw it would think, oh, this is the most obnoxious person ever. I had to make sure to stop on the way back to see the reverse mermaid? Yeah, that seems like a fitting title. Apparently her name is Rosie and she was made as a counterpart to Gil the running fish nearby, who I did not see. A lot of sites described her as fish with legs and breasts, which isn't incorrect, but I feel like it lacks a bit of whimsy. Before I wrapped up the day, I wanted to see more of Olympic National Park. Cape of Lava was part of the coastal section, but I wanted to see the mountainous section. So I went to the closest visitor center to acquire a map. I went up towards Hurricane Ridge since it was right next to the visitor center. I didn't know what Hurricane Ridge was, so I was in it for the journey. I didn't realize it was going to go way up in the mountains. Before we get to the hike though, there's something I have to show you.
Now you may have noticed on my hat has been gathering more pins, and there's one for each corner of the US, because I didn't visit all 4 of the extreme points on this trip, and I was like, yeah, the corners are close enough, they're good enough. And now I can add the northwest corner, the Olympic. We got an Acadia, the Buoy, Balboa Park, and now Olympic. I think it was a cool thing to put on this hat.
Now we can walk up to Hurricane Ridge. When I first got up there, I thought it was pretty cool, but of course the clouds obscuring the view was a bit of a bummer. However, once I started walking up that trail, I could see the valleys and peaks in the distance. Holy shit, dude. What else is there to say other than that the view is incredible? This might have been my favorite scenery of the whole trip. It does feel silly that I went around the entire US, and at the end of the day, my favorite type of place is still forested mountains. I didn't need to go all the way around to see this, but I'm glad I did. This will never not be the most incredible feeling to me.
The entire walk up has just been me going like, damn. And I mean, damn.
Olympic was probably on the top of the list of national parks I wanted to visit. They're at least easy to get to, and it did not disappoint.
It's fucked up that the steepest part so far has been the switchbacks. Like, that's antithetical to switchbacks. Look at that, though. It's terrible quality. It's focusing on me, but you know.
I saw a family of these grouses, grousing about. After probably the most strenuous hike of the trip, I had made it to the top of the Hurricane Ridge. Well, at least as far as I want people to go.
I feel like this is the climactic vibe I was hoping for earlier. I mean, you know, hiking up a mountain, or at least partially up a mountain. The car did most of the work, but you know, this huge view. I mean, I love mountains, so like, of course, this is going to be, like, this will feel like a finale to me. And, you know, time to head back down. And, yeah. I don't know, Olympic might be my new favorite national park. Beating out Glacier. I've been to.
And what trip up the mountains would be complete without a marmot sighting? I love marmots. They're such cool little chunky guys. Maybe it's recency bias, but I think Olympic might be my favorite national park I've been to. Easily the best of the trip. Here's the final national parks of the trip ranking. 7th, Indiana Dunes. 6th, Cuyahoga Valley. 5th, Everglades. 4th, Saguaro. 3rd, Redwood. 2nd, Acadia. And 1st, Olympic. Descending really felt like I was entering the falling action of this story, which feels like a weird way to think about life. Think about it in narrative terms, but sometimes it fits. The original name idea I had for the big loop was Around the USA in 40 days, but when the first loop failed, I just called it the big loop because it was still a big loop technically. I did travel decently far, just not as big as I wanted it to be. However, this year I kept with the 40-day time frame, even though I didn't need to, although I did add one extra day at the end to spend with a friend. Also, Google Maps told me a very suboptimal route to Seattle, don't worry about it. It's also possible I misread the map, but who would I be seeing in Seattle?
So, what'd you think?
Yeah, it was a great trip, man. It was a great trip. Good to be back, even if it's just for this one day.
If you have no idea who this is, that's Nathaniel, and he joined me last year on the failed big loop. Now he's here at the end, like when Bilbo is at the end of the Lord of the Rings. I guess that makes me Gandalf in this metaphor, since he's the only one who went on both journeys. This analogy doesn't make any sense, but you're used to that in my rambling by now. Or you're not, because I've cut so much of it out. As you probably noticed, each part has a title, but there are a lot of rejects, and they vary in quality, so enjoy this dramatic reading of them.
It's been 1 week since you looped me. Live, laugh, loop. Loop dreams. Loop, there it is. She big on my loop till I too. Doc, strange love, or how I stopped worrying and learned to love the loop. Feeling loopy. Electric Boogaloo. Loopy Loop, the cream-filled robot. Loophole. Lubricant. Chicken loop for the soul. Cindy Loop Who. Loop Farino. Everybody wants to loop the world. 2 loops of raisin? Loop therapy. Rise and fall, rage and loop. We bought a loop. Fiddler on the loop. I'm on big loop and I must scream. Don't eep in the loop.
Yeah.
Carpool spelled backwards is loop rag. Crazy thing called loop. Crazy little thing called loop. It's loop in time, then he looped all over the place. California looping. It's the end of the loop as we know it, and I feel fine. In the loop of the crimson ring. Remember when Gwyneth Paltrow had vagina candles called Goop? What if I did that and they were called Loop and smelled like my ball sweat after a 10-hour drive through Florida?
The whole thing. That'd be the title of the video.
Sign loop.
Side loop. Which one's your favorite?
It's gotta be 2 loops of raisin or the last one, which I won't repeat. Back to the abyss.
Alright. Back to the abyss you go.
It's day 41. It's the last day. All I need to do today is get home. And that's... yeah. I don't know. I have like this knot. I have like a pit in my stomach. Like, I mean, on one hand, I'm like, okay, finally today I can go home, sleep in my own bed, you know, stop driving every day. But on the other, I don't know. This has become my life. This is... I think it'll be weird. I think it'll be a weird adjustment period. Just sitting in my house. Or just staying in the same place every night. I think it'll be a weird adjustment. The loop, it flew by. Especially once I got, past Florida. Boom. Like, time flies. Time flies when you take things one day at a time, and then you look back and you're like, wow, that was all this past couple months. That's so much happened. And I'm like, that was all this trip. I haven't been home since, like, I'll think about things that happened, I'll be like, dang, I haven't been home since then. And now I finally will be, so... Lovely scenery on this final day, though. We got one last shitposty town named George Washington. So even though today's the last day, there's still one part of the country that I wasn't looking forward to driving through, and that is Eastern Washington. Because I'm sure when most of you hear, like, oh, Washington nature, you picture something like Olympic, but a good chunk of the state is just like scrub and farmland, and it's so hot and dry. I do not like it. I think it's a miserable place to drive through. But it is so hot and dry that I do think at least part of it does count as a desert. So, in the desert, you can't remember your name, because there ain't no one for to give you no pain.
Turns out it's actually not too bad if you don't spend that much time out of the car.
Dude, I haven't listened to me singing, I haven't listened to me in any of the singing bits, so I can't wait to hear how much I hate it. Alright, we got one more state. It's Idaho. Yeah, we're just kind of driving through on the interstate here.
I have less to say about Idaho than Delaware. I've driven this part so many times. It should be obvious, but I'm done.
After over 40 days, I'm back in Montana, returning to the state it began. Well, I'm back in Montana, my home state, and yeah, it feels good to be back. It'll be nice to get home. You know, I still have some hours of driving left, but I think there's time for one last stop.
That's right, this video won't end with a bang, but the whimper of the St. Regis Trout Aquarium. What's crazy is that it used to look even sadder. It used to be like a dimly lit closet in the back.
Well, Big Loop is pretty much over, so I guess I'll share a few closing thoughts. It will be nice to get home, but at the same time, the road's been my home kind of for like the past month, so I think it'll be weird. I think it'll be a weird adjustment. And like, I don't know if I want to return to what my everyday life was before. Like, I definitely need to stop somewhere. Yeah, like I cannot keep going, but I don't know. I don't know if I want to return to what my life was before. I probably will though. But yeah, if I were to ever do anything like this again, I would definitely want to have someone to do it with. If not for the whole thing, for at least like a decent chunk of it, or if like multiple people for like different chunks and like spans of it, which I tried to plan this time, but it just didn't, pan out, which it's tricky, I understand. But yeah, oh my goodness, there's so many butterflies hitting my windshield. I think what's interesting going into this, I thought that like the boring stretches, like, just crossing like all of West Texas, or like the long empty stretches, I thought would be kind of the ones where I'd want someone with me the most. But it's like, no, it was more like the ones where I was experiencing something cool. I was more kind of sad I didn't have anyone to share a memory with. Because on like a long, boring drive, it's like I can just listen to the same song 15 times in a row and no one can tell me to not do that. So, so I'm just chilling there. So whether there's been 10 or 10,000 of you watching, this has been Goshen Man, the Big Loop 2. Thanks for watching.
Not to drag us out even further, but I feel like a final thought segment after the loop happened and the series is over would be a nice addendum. I mean, if you stuck around this far, it's a few more minutes. The first day of being home had kind of like a weird nostalgic feeling. It kind of felt like one of the first days of like summer vacation as a kid, and you just kind of wake up and you don't gotta worry about homework anymore. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Weeks later, of course, while writing the script, I settled back into a routine, but I can feel the weight of procrastination. And of course, I'm still feeling that as I'm recording this, because, I did this trip like 6 months ago, but just now getting to release it. It feels like such a surreal journey that I went on. It's like, oh yeah, over a month of my life, I was just driving around the country. For like all the months after that, I was working on editing into videos, and of course, since I was planning on doing this like a year earlier, I started planning it out then. So this has been consuming some part of my brain for pretty much 2 years now. So I guess the big question is, would I do it again? And the answer is maybe, but there would definitely have to be heavy editing of the planning. I also would definitely want to like actually lock in more people, because I already did it by myself. I don't want to do it by myself again, There's plenty of times that, I was just kind of like, damn, this is rough. But looking back on, like, yeah, this is a cool thing I did. Glad I did it. It also feels like it might have been the last year I've been able to do that, because, shit's kind of starting to hit the fan. I don't want to make any exact predictions on what's going to happen. But as for what's next after the Big Loop 2,
guess what? Third set of reflections. Now, this video is all the episodes from my Big Loop 2 series edited together into one. And I made it partially because, there's some things I wanted to add to the series and some little small editing things I wanted to fix up. But also partially because when I first released the Big Loop 2, it just didn't do as well as I'd hoped. At the end of the day, I gotta remember, there are far more important things than my video not doing as well as I'd hoped. But man, I put in a lot of time into it. I kind of hoped it would stretch a bit further beyond my regular audience. And now you start talking about, it's like, I don't want to sound ungrateful to all the people who did watch along and enjoy and engage with it. There's part of me that's like, man, I kind of did wish it, like, was a little bit life-changing. But Linear series have died off a little bit on YouTube. Not 100% obviously, but I don't know, I hope by editing this into one video do better, so. But of course I do appreciate everyone who watched Big Loop 2 as it came out, and through this video all the way through. Like, if you watched all of this video, holy shit, dude, congratulations. I do genuinely appreciate that so much, because this is, you know, an insanely long video, but I do appreciate it. And I guess I'll see you the next time I go somewhere. This has been Goshen Man, the Big Loop 2.